Yeah, sure.
Titch, do you want know what you want to talk about or?
I'm going.
Okay.
Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with another Sunday stream with everyone's favorite harmonica and lighting enthusiast, Adam Friended.
What's up? How you doing?
Hello.
We have a very special guest today. Did you notice?
I did notice we have a very special guest. Who's our very special guest?
TJ Kirk, the amazing atheist.
How you doing, TJ?
Pretty good. I'm looking at your guys' post here on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm reading the comments. Antonio C. I'm not a fan of TJ, so I'm skipping a day. Well, they can't all be shows for me. Have fun. Oh, shit. TJ. This is from Christian Baller.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shit. This is going to be good. TJ's been posting insane shit recently. The only word I object to is recently.
What is the insane shit you've been posting recently?
It's true.
I don't know. Prepare for bad faith from TJ. He's on a roll of it recently. If I'm bad faith, then everyone else is evil faith. Because
that might be a good place to start.
I'm the last bastion of honesty on this godforsaken site. So fuck you.
Whoa. The second
currently on the same grift as actual fandom and organized chaos.
What?
I don't know.
Goodness. Oh my goodness.
I vaguely know who actual fandom is. I think I might have actually been on that. Maybe. No,
I don't think you have. They're
organized chaos. I don't know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Always makes for good content for you and Sitch though. Good for the lols. Oh no, LMAO. Who? These guys bringing the pain lately. How's old BJ Cuck doing? Hey, just because a conga line of black men fuck my wife in front of me every night while I cry.
Oh my God, TJ, okay? No.
But I do. BJ is fine because I do suck them all off afterwards. So
no, there you go.
Fair enough.
Gotta keep it clean and tidy.
Fair. That part's fair. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Are you guys trying to get monetized this shit? My bad.
Well, I guess. Well, we were monetized a minute ago, but that's
these videos never get monetized.
No, you're fucked now. You ain't getting monetized, bitch.
Well, I guess you could say that TJ is not worried about you hurting his feelings. So, I mean, how can you hurt a guy who's just watched his wife get banged by like?
I'm fucking hurt deep down inside. What are you talking about? Every single one of those is like a dagger into my fucking heart, man.
So so it's into the pain, huh? Oh my God, no.
TJ. Sad. No, yes, TJ.
Okay, bad faith. We're talking about bad faith.
All right, yeah, bad faith. Let's do it.
Yeah, because bad faith, I feel like so
what does
already.
That mean?
I know. Look, you insinuated though that bad faith meant dishonest, which is one of the things that
here's my understanding. If I can,
go ahead.
Put it out there, just like we can have. Like, you tell me if you agree with this definition or not.
Okay.
So when it comes to good faith or bad faith, good faith to me is like I'm gonna enter this conversation, willing to hear the other person out, willing to listen to their perspective, willing to change my mind. That to me is good faith.
That's
bad
totally
faith
good
is
faith.
like,
yeah.
Bad faith is like I'm not gonna listen to what they say. Any words that come at me, I'm gonna distort them however I can. You know, so that to me is bad faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I don't know, is that right? Is that wrong?
Well, I would say that good faith to me, it doesn't mean that necessarily that you're going to go in there with the ability that you think your mind's going to change. I mean, I think you should always have that, but it's more.
Well, I like his definition though. At least we have the opportunity.
I would just there you go. I would just add to it. I think I look at it more like you're going to be honest in the conversation. You're going to try to actually understand what they're saying and not just like try to twist it around in the most bad faith dunkable clip moment possible.
So what you're saying is you want to exterminate all the non-Jews?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Okay,
listen, the goy have been too long, too uppity in our society. They need to be put in their place.
Sitch is Jewish, by the way. So
I know that's why I said all the That's why I said all the non-Jews.
Yeah.
Don't.
If he wasn't Jewish, I would have said all the Jews.
Yeah.
Oh, you said the goyim though, didn't you, Sitch?
Goyim is non-Jew.
Right, you're going after us now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What do you mean now?
Look, I think we just had a Scott Adams moment on the show here. Sitch just went full mask off.
Yeah.
Listen, Scott Adams didn't go far enough. Okay.
Look, Jews are a hate group, and we all just need to stay away from them. That's all I'm saying.
So, wow. Okay. Now listen. Okay. Canceled. Now I'm allowed to say it as the oppressed minority. You're not allowed.
Hey, wait. Bullshit. I did my ancestry.com. I have like 0.6% Ashkenazi Jew. That's fine.
No, doesn't count.
That's Jewish enough. It's Jewish enough.
No, not according to Jewish bylaws.
Oh shit. How Jewish do I have to be?
Yep. Your mom has to be full Jew.
Oh, shit.
Are you even circumcised, TJ?
No, I'm not.
Well, then get out. You're super not Jewish.
We gotta go. All right.
So we want to talk about politics and science. Obviously, you came up in YouTube as like probably the most prominent anti-theist on the platform, and I'm. It's difficult for me because I myself am an atheist, but I'm not an anti-theist. So the distinction is important to me. Like, I think anti-theists believe the world would be a better place without religion. That's like the core ideology that motivates them. I don't think the world would be a better place without religion as it is. I think the world is getting more and more irreligious as people get richer and richer, because somehow, wealth has this way of making us not worry about things in the way that religion often satisfies people in. So as someone who's watched your content, from way back in the day, I've kind of always wanted to have a conversation with you about religion and politics, because a lot of times, and we talk about this on the show all the time, we see the current state of politics as being kind of a secular religion. Like people are using ideologies that are very much kind of religious, but they don't have a belief in God or the supernatural or any of that stuff. So, but psychologically, I don't necessarily see a difference. So you, and obviously you were reading some of the things, like you post stuff online, and we go back and forth on Twitter from time to time, but it's difficult for me. I look at some of the things you post and I think, well, that's a religious statement, and this is the amazing atheist. So it seems kind of like a contradiction to me. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. But
sure. I guess to zero in on something, when you're talking about religious belief versus religious dogma, and then of course there can be secular dogma. Right. There can be ideas that are very dogmatic, or not necessarily ideas themselves that are dogmatic, but there can be systems of ideas that are like broadly dogmatic, and you see that when someone steps out of line with those ideas, they're treated in the same way like a heretic might be from a religion or something.
Sure, totally. Right. But so dogma, and I mean, I like I said, I'm an atheist. I used to watch the atheist community all the time. I remember Atheism Plus and all that stuff that you were a part of, and I was
never part of Atheism Plus, but
right. But you responded to Atheism Plus. I mean, you did. I did a video. I mean, I think it was called like the complete destruction of Steve Shive. I think Steve Shives tried to start the Atheism Plus stuff, and you kind of went like, "That get away from me with that."
It was PZ Myers and Skepchick, and I think Steve Shives might have been part of it too. There was a number of people that were doing the more Atheism Plus thing. Which was, to my point of view, just like, let's give atheism dogma. And I don't think atheism should have a dogma. I think it should be pretty simply just the rejection of the existence of a deity, or at least the disbelief in a deity. But as far as other ideologies go, I mean, I think anti-theism by necessity has to have a dogma. Like any sort of system that's much more complex than being a single statement kind of inherently falls into some level of dogmatism, right? Because if you're going to have a belief structure, there have to be multiple beliefs within that structure. And if you're going to unite with others, let's fight for these beliefs that we hold together, then there kind of has to be like, well, how much can someone deviate from what we believe before they're no longer really part of our group? If we're advocates for this idea,
right? No,
so I think dogmatism is kind of a necessary social adhesive for groups to function coherently with one another. If you want to reject that, I think you have to almost become a complete individualist and just join with particular causes on a case by case basis, but don't actually have a sort of like tribal unit or group or whatever you want to call it.
Well, no, I love that you're actually saying this, because it's. Dogma is not necessarily just categorically bad. Like, you need certain dogmas. Like, tell the truth is a dogma, right? Be honest is a dogma in our society. Free speech is kind of a dogma in our society. Anti-racism, being against people who are openly racist, that's kind of a dogma in our society. Now, I don't. See, my thinking though is that you have to kind of get the dogma right. Like right now, just with and I think we sparred on Twitter over the trans stuff. Like there's this saying that people are constantly saying, trans women are women. And I see it's like it's an attempt to make that a kind of dogma in our society. And there's a lot of people that are pushing back and saying, no, that's not our societal dogma, and we don't think it should be. And I'm curious if you have a take on how we come up with this dogma, because that's kind of the realm of politics.
The way I would view it on that issue is, there are these sort of behavioral and expectation laden packages that are foisted upon you when you're born with a certain set of genitalia. Where it's like, okay, you have a penis, you're a boy, you got to act this way, you got to do these things, you have to meet up to these social expectations. Okay, you have a vagina, you're a girl, same thing, but in an opposite direction. And I think that a lot of people, they kind of look at, hey, look at this other set of social expectations that are foisted upon this group. That seems more like where I'd want to be. And some people can just go to the level of like, well, I'm not going to like change my gender or anything, but I'm just going to live more like that. Whereas other people, maybe they are also envious of like the body or whatever the hell. But as far as I'm concerned, I view gender as a complete and utter construct. So I just feel like people should just be allowed to do it. I don't think anything should be gender coded. I don't think blue should be for boys and pink should be for girls. I don't think there's a particular clothing item or fashion accessory that should be connoted to one or the other. I just feel like people should be free to make whatever choices best suit them and make whatever sort of adjustments to their physical form they can possibly do with the technology available to us, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, like ultimately at the end of the day, to me, I'll agree with the term trans women are women because I don't believe women is a thing beyond the subjective. I believe there is a female sex and a male sex, obviously. But as far as like the presentation of gender, like I wear a dress and I wear lipstick and all that shit, I feel like that's all just made up.
Right.
I feel like that's completely subjective.
Well, I think I have two questions from what you said. The first is, so when you're talking about like, I mean, I agree obviously that, there are gendered expectations that society foists upon people.
Sure.
But
hard to deny that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, yeah, some people would try to deny it, but do you not really think that any aspect of like what we'd call gendered behavior, you don't think any aspect of that is biological?
Oh, sure. Of course it is.
Oh, okay. It sounded like you were saying you didn't think that.
No, I mean, well, but the problem is that, there's so many exceptions to every rule. Even if you could say like, hey, male sex people are more predisposed to this kind of behavior.
Right.
And female sex people are more predisposed to this kind of behavior. That doesn't mean that like that behavior is inherently of that sex, because you can definitely find people that are female sex that are doing the male sex behaviors and vice versa. This is like tomboys and, sissy guys and whatever the fuck. Right. So like that exists. So, there's no really beyond just like genitalia and some chromosomal shit and like a few differences in like brain. Like there's a few physical things that separate the sexes, right? There's no denying that. But like behaviorally, both sides can run a gigantic spectrum of behaviors. Both sides can run a gigantic spectrum of preferences. There's really like infinite overlap. So like to make a social distinction of this is male, this is female doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I sort of agree with what you're saying, but I think it's important because like, to me, it's not a coincidence. It's not just social conditioning when you say like, oh, the majority of people that commit violent crimes are all men,
Sure.
I mean, we look at, testosterone obviously has a big effect on aggression. And yeah, like, when you like, yes, men and women, I believe on average, of course, can be predisposed to having certain gender behaviors. Obviously, this doesn't include everyone, nor should it mean that as a society, we should make determinations where we say, oh, you have to, if you're a man, you have to, be like all this, gendered preference behavior that the average man has, or the same thing for women. So I agree that that shouldn't be like a prescription. But I think it's important as a description, because I think we get into this area where like people will look at certain fields, especially like the job field, the career field, and they'll say, oh, women aren't making as much as men, so therefore it must be, they jump to the conclusion, it must be there's some form of sexism that's, preventing women from doing this. And if you actually kind of like break it down and look into it, it's like, well, it just seems like on average, men and women are making different choices. I'd argue those choices are mostly biological, and that can be the explanation.
I mean, it's
at least
kind
a lot
hard.
of the explanation for some of this
like
behavior difference.
When you're living in a society,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard to make the distinction of like, what's the genesis of this behavior versus this behavior. Like, we know that male brains and female brains are different.
Right.
But when you actually get down into the nitty gritty of trying to figure out exactly how they're different, very hard. Like, we can see like they're shaped different, they respond to certain things differently, but like trying to figure out like what is the actual difference between these two things on like a very fundamental level, kind of difficult to fucking do.
Well, it depends what you're looking for. Like,
sure. When you take like the social expectation kind of thing, it's like, let's look at how like women, like you use the gender pay gap as an example. Right. Like, yeah, a lot of that's behavioral. Sure. Could some of that be sexism? Maybe. Could some of that be behavioral? I mean, it seems more than likely it is. Mm-hmm. Are those behaviors conditioned? Are those behaviors genetic? Are those behaviors a combination of the two things? Like, it's very hard because we don't really understand the human brain all that well, even to this day, to suss all of that out. Like, if you read neuroscience books, one of the things that the most prominent neuroscientists in the world will constantly convey to you is like, we still don't understand a lot of this shit. We know more about like the oceans and the stars than we do about our own brains to some extent.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that. And if we lived in a society where people acknowledged that, and there was kind of this open-ended question, as opposed to this kind of like strict political, this is because of, bigotry, then I guess I'd be more open to that, to just accepting that. But when we look at something, let me just say, like, when we look at something like, a good example is, with programmers, there's this, attack that, oh, the programming industry must be sexist because it's still mostly men. And I'm like, well, you look at, the fields of like being a doctor, being a lawyer, there's more women graduating from med school. There's more women graduating from law school than there are men. Once these fields, stopped being, openly bigoted. And yet there's still less women in the fields of programming. And then you say, well, that's interesting. And you combine that with all the toy studies that all overwhelmingly show that, men on average, even, male chimpanzees and male non-human primates, all on average are more interested in things instead of people, and women are more interested in people and social situations and things. To me, it's just very clearly like why these behavioral preferences are being made in certain fields. And we have to acknowledge that.
I mean, that shouldn't be ignored for sure. I mean, like, if we can look, if there is some sort of predilection that does kind of go down to that, because I'm not one of these blank slate people. I don't think human beings are just like a complete blank slate.
Well, you have a brain, so that's why you don't believe that.
And it comes with a lot of like there's been a lot of fucking very intelligent people who have still believed in this blank slate hypothesis for some goddamn reason. I think maybe they want to for ideological reasons or something.
Exactly.
But we're not a blank slate. But we're also not all running on some fucking identical operating system. Like, there might not be as many women in programming, but there are women in programming.
Sure.
And there might not be as many men who are, interested in social situations over like cool gizmos and gadgets, but there's plenty that are.
Sure.
So I mean, like, we have to recognize that, yeah, sure, we can't ignore that these distinctions might exist, but we can't make the distinctions so monolithic and immutable that like, no, you're deviating if you if you go outside of the parameters of this. Like, why? I don't think there's any reason to pigeonhole someone into some sort of like behavior just because there's a predilection among some ultimately at the end of the day superficial trait that they possess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely. That's why I would like for society to be structured along the ideas of equal opportunity, where we say, listen, we're not going to judge you based on your gender or your race or whatever. You can, if you want to be an effeminate male or a tomboy, woman or whatever, if you want to go into job markets that are, dominated by the other sex for whatever reason, no one's going to be bigoted or biased against you.
Well, the problem is that
whatsoever.
People tend.
Well, let me just finish. And so, so I'm in favor of structuring society that way. My problem, though, is it seems like now with the idea of equity, being forced on there has to be equal demographic outcomes in every field. And that, I think, is kind of why, I like to bring up the biology in these conversations to say, well, you're not going to get that perfect equity.
Yeah, but I don't really think there's any problem with striving for it.
Yeah, but I don't think it should be strived for. I think we should be striving for removing the bigotry so people can make their own choices.
How do you remove the bigotry, though?
You just say let people behave how they want to behave. You promote an idea of tolerance and individualism.
What if some of those individuals want to behave in a bigoted fashion? What if they band together and form the bigot club and prevent other people from? I mean, this is not a hypothetical. This is what's actually happened.
But I think that's why society. Adam said this earlier. I think society. That's why has done a good job. Society has done a good job.
You got to say it very jokery and
that's true.
Society
has done a good job really cracking down on making overt racism not acceptable.
Well, and to bring it back to the dogma thing.
I feel like that's been pushed back against a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to disagree with
Look, this is a byproduct of a dogma, though. The dogma is that if there is any sort of racial disparity in any job, racial or gender disparity, then that's evidence of sexism or racism. That's the dogma. But I don't think that dogma is true. I think that dogma is incorrect, scientifically inaccurate.
But here's the thing. Here's where I would kind of push back a little bit against that. So let's say you see there's massive racial or gender bias in a particular industry, or not even necessarily bias, but you just see there's a discrepancy. I would rather we attribute too much of that to hey, is there something going on that's unfair here? Rather than just be well, it's probably just part of nature. Because I mean, isn't it? Aren't you better off assuming hey, we should look into this and see if there is some sort of discrimination going on here to make sure that's not the explanation for this.
I feel this is Pascal's wager just about gender and ideology.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you feel that.
It is. How's it any different?
Because if you were a black person that was applying for a job and a white person got that job over you because their name is Michael and yours is Tyrone, then I think you feel differently about that.
Well, hold on a second.
Someone's well, it's probably just your genetic proclivity for inferiority or whatever.
Look, I don't think you understand the critique that I'm making. Pascal's wager famously says, since you don't really have enough evidence, you should just side on believing in God just to be safe, right? And you're basically saying, well, since we don't have enough evidence that the thing I want to exist exists, let's just side on the idea that it does, and just assume that this sexism, racism exists.
Let's remember though,
can't we figure out scientifically? Can't we look and see if it actually exists?
Let's talk about Pascal's wager for a second.
Okay.
Because one of the problems with Pascal's wager might actually be a little bit more persuasive if it was here is the one path that we claim gets you to heaven, and here is your non-belief that's going to send you directly to hell, right? Now, if you're wrong, blah, 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 the whole Pascal's wager thing. But the problem with Pascal's wager is there's fucking practically infinite faiths. So, even if you do, you're still more likely, if there is a hell, to go to hell when you pick any random religion out there.
Sure.
So there's tons of different fucking options out there. But also, the result of me being wrong about, hey, there's a let's say there's 90% males in this industry. Why is there only 10% women in this industry? Could that be because of sexism?
Well,
let's look into that.
My comparing it to Pascal's wager, though, is that we can look at, why can't we look at science?
We can, but the end result is not hell. We're not going to burn in hell if we get this one fucking wrong. The end result is either hey, we put too much emphasis on stopping sexism in this industry when actually there was another explanation. Oops.
Well, first of all,
that's not certain to me, TJ. I'm going to pull a Jordan Peterson.
First of all, when you do get it wrong, you do
yours, woke moralists.
When you do get it wrong, you do commit a sexism. You just commit a sexism against the men that you discriminate against in hiring, so that you can get the gender balance that you're seeking in employment.
Well,
I'm
not necessarily saying like just force the balance to happen, whether it's going to naturally happen or not. But like you should definitely make sure.
What are you saying then? That's exactly
what I'm saying is stringently take the idea that maybe the discrepancy has its basis in sexism seriously, and do everything you can to remove any fucking barrier possible. And then if the discrepancy remains, it's like, okay, well, we did our best. It seems like we've removed all the barriers. The discrepancy still exists. Obviously, it exists for some other reason.
Right. Well, I feel like we're at that.
Seems like the rational thing to do.
Yeah. No. Well, two things. If we live in a society that was that mature, then I would agree with you completely. Unfortunately, we don't live in that. We don't live in that world. Okay. No. People are they're going to push for, especially because you have a lot of activist groups who, they make money by pushing for activism. So they're never going to admit, well, I guess we were wrong. I guess we've reached peak equality in this field. So that's the first issue. The second issue is if we still lived in a world where, or at least in a country where the liberal framework of ideas was all that was being talked about, I would be far more open to what you're suggesting. I guess I'm a little hesitant because since I'm looking at the left as basically being subverted by, literal Marxism and Marxist ideas, that I think when they promote this idea of like, oh, everything is sexist, everything is racist.
Marxism is the left. I mean, let's be real. Like, liberalism is not leftism. It's not. I mean,
according to who?
According to me.
But why?
Because that's not like traditionally what the left has been.
What do you mean? Wait. That was literally the tradition. The tradition of left. The origin of left was liberalism versus monarchy. What do you mean?
Maybe in this country.
No. When the left-right divide started in France, it was liberalism versus the liberal democracy versus monarchy.
I guess if you want to qualify that as being leftism, but to me, it kind of started when Karl Marx put pen to paper. Like that's when leftism was born.
That's a little bit of revisionist history, but
the political philosophy. It's really just about semantics at that point. It's just like what are you going to call left? I don't particularly think liberalism is leftist. I think it's like, I don't know, moderate right.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, okay. But let me add. So we're gonna have another question. How do you define left and right? Okay? But before we get into that, there was one other trans question I want to ask.
Sure.
So from what you were saying with the trans stuff, like my view of the trans question is that there's this thing called gender dysphoria. We don't know exactly what causes it, but it is real. It does exist. I do believe it's something that's primarily biological, or people are predisposed to it, and maybe it can be activated by some sort of environmental conditioning. And that I think only people that have gender dysphoria should transition or should be allowed to transition, that it's a medical procedure. It's not so much people like finding their identity. Yeah. And it seemed like from what you were saying, it seemed like you were sort of insinuating that, anyone for any reason should be able to transition.
Right. Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
Okay. So I vehemently disagree with.
Why?
Because if we lived in a world where like you could walk into your character customization video game booth and you could just change your appearance and there was no downside, I would agree with you, but we don't. And, so transitioning is very expensive. It's very painful. It's a medical procedure that often doesn't always have the best outcome.
I don't think people should necessarily take it lightly, but I think if you look into that and you decide like, this is what I want, I don't really think the reason why should matter all that much. We don't ask that for any other cosmetic surgery. It's like, I want a big butt. All right, well, here's the risks. You still want to do it? Yep. Boom. Here's your big ass. Like, there's so many things a person can do, from, injecting collagen, fucking phalloplasty, rhinoplasty, fucking butt surgery. There's a million and one like augmentation. I got LASIK eye surgery. A dude fucking shot a laser into my eye. There's tons of fucking studies out there that say that might not be great, but I did it because I decided that's what I wanted to do. Well, so there's a lot of fucking surgeries that are not necessarily necessary, that are completely elective, that are maybe superficial on some level, but someone psychologically desires them for whatever reason, and we don't put up barriers that stop people from doing that. I don't see why this should be treated any differently.
We do put up some barriers, obviously. Like if you walked in and said, I want to get an arm amputated, the doctor's going to say, I'm not going to do that. So
you could probably find somebody.
Yeah, but it's certainly not acceptable in the widespread community of doctors, right?
Hey, there's doctors, and then there's doctors,
Well,
right?
but obviously
yeah,
the things that you're talking about, though.
I mean, I don't think there's too many people that are trying to get an arm amputated, but if someone did want that, who fucking cares? No fucking arm off
they'd
my
have
body.
a buddy. They'd have a buddy do it for them. Let's
get the fucking bandsaw.
Well, no,
what we're talking about here, obviously, you're talking about for consenting adults, right? The problem that is often brought into the trans situation is a lot of the justifications that we give for adults, they tend to stretch to adolescents who don't necessarily have the best decision-making faculties.
Sure. And I mean, I don't think they should be getting like advanced surgeries and shit at a fucking super young age. But if there's, I mean, I think that the system that exists now, by and large, I mean, I know that there's a few people here and there that slip through the cracks that, are, oh, it turns out I don't want to transition. Oh shit, we made a mistake. But like the vast majority seem okay with it in the long run. And no one's being like, there's no fucking gender reassignment surgeries being done on fucking like 3-year-olds or something. So I don't really see the issue. Like you have to go, like every step of this is like overseen by mental health professionals and shit, right? So
are you against puberty blockers for children underage?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, wait. There's two things. The first, I want to go circle back for a second before we talk about puberty blockers, which was I mean, I think you can bring up cosmetic surgery as a counterbalance. I wouldn't consider LASIK, obviously, because it has a strict medical.
It has a function, but I mean, it has a function, but my glasses served the same function with inherently less health risks attached to them. So
sure, but there's a difference between saying like, oh, you can do this thing that will improve your health outcomes.
Not really.
It has a risk versus like, oh, this is a purely cosmetic procedure. Those are two different things. Those are conceptualized very differently by the medical community and by society as a whole.
Maybe by society as a whole, not really by the medical community, because once again, gender transition is seen as the medical solution to gender dysphoria.
Well, wait, well, first of all, we're just talking about the difference between cosmetic and medical procedure. I wasn't talking about transition.
Well, no, but when we were talking about cosmetic, you were talking about me saying that even people who don't have gender dysphoria should be able to transition. So that was a different subject. Now we're talking about people who have gender dysphoria.
Right, but that's different. Right, but that's my point, is that like if you have gender dysphoria and you transition, it's a medical procedure. It's not a cosmetic procedure.
Exactly. But if you just decide you'd rather, present that way, then I still think you should be able to do it. I don't fucking see why not.
Well, this goes back to
isn't that just like an individual liberty kind of thing?
This goes back to the children thing, which we don't generally conceptualize children as having individual liberty.
Well,
like
we're not talking about children. We're talking about adults.
I don't think kids should be able to just like volunteer. I just feel trans, if they're not diagnosed with gender dysphoria, then no, they got to wait till they're fucking older.
So that's why Sitch is making the separation. He's making the separation between people who just want to transition and are, adults, and people who have gender dysphoria and are doing it for a medical reason.
Sure. And then I'll accept that distinction. Like, yeah, for the fucking latter class of people who are just wanting to do it for some other reason, yeah, they should be adults. But for kids who have gender dysphoria that are being seen by mental health care professionals, that are going through the like recommended things of their doctors, that's fine. I don't see a problem with that.
Right. Well, maybe we just have a very different idea on. I mean, I'm generally pretty pro liberty, but I'm not like an extremist on this. I don't think people should be able to do whatever drugs they want.
I do.
People should. Yeah, well, so maybe we just have
He's kind of a stick in the mud.
Principled disagreement on that level. I do think society has some level of protection that should be given to its citizens in terms of
I don't want society protecting me from myself. Fuck that. I'd rather make mistakes if I'm gonna make them and like live with those rather than have Big Daddy government come and tell me what's what. Okay. Fuck that.
Well, you understand though, in the context of children, it's difficult because the whole purpose of parenting is protecting.
We're not talking about kids.
Okay.
We're only talking about
kids.
It's still important. Yeah.
Get together on this. Figure out where you want to be.
Well, and so with the other thing that you're talking about was about puberty blockers was my concern with puberty blockers is that pre-puberty blockers, pre-affirmative care model, desistance rates were basically measured, which is when someone says they're trans and then isn't. The rates of that before puberty blockers were introduced in the early 2000s and the 90s and the 80s, it was something like in the realms of 60 to 90% of kids would desist once they go through puberty. And then once you start putting kids on puberty blockers, it drops to like 20 to 30%.
That's true. And there is a giant fucking issue with this. And it's kind of a catch-22 if you're a medical professional in this situation, because you're faced with a situation where it's going to be much easier if this person does need to transition. Then it's going to be much easier if they transition before going through puberty. It's going to be much easier if they don't go. If it's much easier to transition to female if you don't go through male puberty, it's much easier to transition to vice versa.
Right.
But it's also true, like you said, that you're in a situation where a lot of times if someone's having gender dysphoria and then they go through the male puberty or the female puberty, that fucking knocks it out.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when puberty blockers are used, this is my understanding, it's to try to like psychologically assess like which of the two categories that person's actually in. So it's like it's a way to try to buy more time to figure out what's going on.
If that's the way it works, that would be good. Unfortunately, at least in America, under the affirmative model, which is basically to not question someone's trans identity, that's not really. It's really like this. Just the puberty blockers are there to block until they're old enough to essentially transition with hormones or surgery.
I don't know that that's necessarily how it's approached. But I've never been through this personally firsthand. You'd have to talk to a trans person about that and kind of like gauge their experiences, because I can only go off of like the understanding I have from talking to people.
Well, if it was that way, I assume would that change your mind?
I would say that it would change my mind slightly in that, I think they should be used a little bit differently. Because, if you are at a point where, you assess like, hey, it seems to me like going through male puberty has a pretty fucking strong chance of erasing this person's gender dysphoria, then I don't necessarily see a problem in allowing that to happen. But the thing that sucks is if you're wrong, then that person is going to be in a worse situation. So it's like, I get the dilemma. I really do.
Yeah, no, I get it too. I get it completely too. I mean, that's why it annoys me, because I feel like the trans community should really be pushing for funding for research to determine brain scans, biological tests.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, to be fair, it's kind of hard to be focusing on that level of nuance when it seems like there's a lot of like existential threat level things being said about you, politically. It kind of pushes people towards extremist positions when there's like people talking about eradication on like the national stage.
Sure. I assume you're referring to the Michael Knowles clip, which maybe we'll talk about. But I agree and kind of disagree, because I think if the rhetoric from the trans community, or the trans activists, I should say more, because most trans people just want transition and move on with their lives. But from the trans activist side of things, if the rhetoric was, we acknowledge that there are, people that think they're trans but aren't, and we basically want to develop medical tests to just, figure that out, I think that a lot of the anti-trans side would lose a lot of its steam.
Yeah, I've known a lot of people who are trans, who are, I guess, activists, because they're advocates, who I don't think would particularly object to what you just said. So I don't know.
Sure. That's just not where the focus is at all.
I mean, I feel like that's because everything kind of becomes these. Look, I mean, if we want to talk about the bigger picture a little bit here, like there's like a distinctive class of people that use social issues like this to divide the populace, so that they can keep lining their pockets. So, I mean, this is like this is just a rerun of gay shit in the 90s for me. Like 90s and early 2000s, the gays were all of the things that trans people now are. You saw the same fucking nuclear level rhetoric going on about the gays. And then it was like, when that was no longer, it doesn't seem like they're being too divided by that one anymore. Move on to the next thing.
Do you understand the intuitions that those politicians are catering to, though, that there are a lot of parents that are worried that their children are going to be misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria and embark on a path that's going to destroy their entire...
There's a lot of parents that are just worried that their child is going to be brainwashed into being gay.
Well, I mean, you would be in...
it's like, come on, no bullshit, fuck that. I don't fucking I have no sympathy for that horse shit.
So look, this is why I want to talk about this, because like there's an ideology being taught in schools that I'm not certain is scientifically accurate. But when there was the ideology being taught in schools called intelligent design, you were against that. You were completely against that because you thought it's not right for people to come in and, you know, make their ideology, dress it up as if it's somehow scientific, and spoon feed it to school children. You were against it then. But now,
I still am.
But now the same thing seems to be happening with this gender ideology stuff. They're dressing it up in a scientific bow and ribbon and spoon feeding it to children. And you're like all for it. You're totally gung-ho in favor of it.
Because I don't know, that's just like a ludicrous comparison to me. Like, how demonstrate to me that there is a level of like pseudoscience fallaciousness going on in medical transitioning versus creationism.
Well, people say this all the time. They're like they say trans people exist as if that's proof of anything. Christians exist. Does that prove that Christ died for our sins? Does it prove that God exists? But Christians do exist. Christians have an ideology that they look at.
That Christians exist, though, that does demonstrate the existence of Christians. Saying that trans people exist demonstrates the existence of trans people.
It demonstrates the existence of trans ideology. That's what it demonstrates.
Saying Christianity exists demonstrates the existence of Christian ideology.
It does. Yes. No. Exactly. Whatever. That's the same thing. But one ideology you accept.
Yeah. I mean. So wait,
one ideology you accept as truth.
So the similarity is there's ideologies involved.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, well, there's always everything I believe is part of an ideology. So
yes, but
fucking gives a
look,
shit?
as you know, a scientific person, as a materialist, I like to focus on ideologies that fit the actual real world. that's one of the reasons why I think we have disagreement on this, is because you said gender
dysphoria exists, right?
Well, I think, yes, gender dysphoria, something called gender dysphoria exists. I don't necessarily know the details of it. Like I'm not willing to let, children just randomly transition after one.
No one's randomly transitioning. There's a long drawn out process. I know trans people. I've not yet met one trans person who was like, hey, I went to a psychiatrist. They were like, you're trans.
So what?
Turn up Tuesday to meet Dr. fucking Penis Chopper MD. Like,
tell me.
Like, this is fiction, sir. This is a fantasy.
Hold on, TJ. You've heard many of the Christians explain to you their transformation story, right? They tell you things like, I feel God is real. Like, God has spoken to me. God has acted in my life in certain ways that make me undeniably believe that God exists and he's there for me. You've heard that again and again and again, and you've scoffed at it every single time. What do we look at that's something objective when somebody says, I am, a woman trapped in a man's body, or I am a man trapped in a woman's body? They say, I feel this, deep down in my soul. I understand this. My gender assigned at birth was incorrect.
Do you believe in ADHD? Do you believe in bipolar disorder?
Well,
because you can't see any of those things. You can't see inside the human brain. And
yes, you can too. You can measure it. Look, you can measure those things. There are different tests that you can measure: anxiety. You can measure blood pressure. You can measure skin changes.
You can look at the brains of trans women and trans men and see that they are different. So you can look at that too. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can't. Sometimes there needs to be a lot more research on that. But I wanted last I checked, there's differences in brain chemistry and fucking brain formation. So right, but there's been there's differences in brain, the way the brain is in straight and gay people, and so there's a question of how the overlap would be if someone is trans.
Well, yeah, but once again, when dealing with the brain, you're dealing with uncharted territory. If you want to talk about you're dealing with a final frontier here. Like, if you read a neuroscience book from the foremost neuroscience experts, every single one of them will convey to you just how much we do not fucking know. We don't even understand.
There are sex differences though that are way more measurable than the brain. Retinal thickness of males is significantly larger than retinal thickness of females. They could measure other things.
No one's denying physiological differences between the sexes. So,
well, I think what Adam was referring to when he talked about, the gender ideology being taught in school is that when you look at the gender unicorn and, some of the classes that I've seen where they talk about
the gender unicorn.
Yeah, the gender unicorn.
I don't know what the gender unicorn is.
It was like this chart that made the rounds, a couple of years ago that was being pushed in a bunch of schools.
Okay.
But anyway, whenever I see curriculum and teachers talking about sort of the gender quote unquote ideology in schools, they're not coming from it from the same place that you are. They're basically saying that people are blank slates. There are no gendered behavioral differences. And that's kind of my contention that the way this is being taught in schools.
I mean, I don't know. You'd have to show me a particular curriculum or teacher or whatever, and I could maybe criticize them. But, I don't know. I feel like there's so much ideology at this point that's been thrown into the mix, and so much tribalism, so much trying
on
to
both sides though, right?
Prove or disprove this shit. I mean, yeah, that's like the nature of tribalism is that both sides, or usually it's more than two sides these days, but the nature of tribalism is that each tribe is going to, form a circle and point their spears outwards, right? So so I don't really know. I don't really trust necessarily like this source of information or that source of information. For me, most of what I know about trans people comes from talking to trans people. Most of what I know about transitioning comes from them telling me about transition.
This is why I wanted to talk to you, TJ, because what you're saying, that's to me the same as somebody saying most of what I know about Christians is from talking to Christians.
Sure.
Like you would not accept the lived experience of Christians to prove anything about the natural world.
Of course not.
Okay, so why do you accept the lived experience of trans people to prove something about the natural world?
Because they're not talking about some external thing. They're talking about what's within.
Yes, their internal experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
When a Christian tells me about Christianity, I accept the experience they had inwardly. God touched my life. I understand that person feels that God touched their life.
Right. But my question is why
I don't believe in that external God because nothing about what that person is saying to me expects me to change my views of reality on the basis of nothing. The only thing it changes is like, hey, here's who I am. Okay, I believe you.
The trans ideology asks you to take for granted that people can be born in the wrong body, that brains can be born in the wrong body.
I mean, you already agreed that gender dysphoria exists. So, I mean, that's basically that, right?
Well, we don't know what it is. I think it's a self-image processing problem. I don't think it's that a brain's born in the wrong body, but that's
sure.
Quibbling over
there are different treatments that you can do for this thing called gender dysphoria too. Why are we selecting the treatment that all of a sudden we're going to have you switch your biological sex?
The only other thing I've ever seen was just prescribe people lithium, which is basically just like turn them into a fucking lithium zombie. So I've never heard of any other treatments beyond that.
I don't know if they've tried that many other alternatives, but
I would like the level of skepticism people have in the atheist community for Christianity and other religions. They understand that yes, Christians exist, but their ideology, their belief system, isn't giving a true, accurate picture of the world. Yet people will look at
throughout this entire sort of discussion. There's this tact of like, I want to liken trans ideology quote to religion, and I just don't think the comparison is all that there.
Okay, what's off about it?
Because religion is like literally like here is a layout of everything that's going on about the natural world.
Correct. Yeah, trans ideology has that as well.
No, how? Because trans ideology, which I don't even really agree with the terminology trans ideology in the first place.
Mostly it's called like gender ideology, but the idea that gender is a social construct. And they're trying to change it so that biological sex is a social construct.
I mean, gender is a social construct.
Well, no, but you acknowledge it's not purely a social construct.
You said that.
No, I never said it wasn't purely a social construct. It is purely
right, but that's what
construct.
Adam meant. He meant that's what gender ideology says.
Hold on, let's just be clear here.
Let's be clear.
Gender is the social construct part of it. What you did admit to is that biology plays a role in constructing that social construct.
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. So yes, I understand, and I think it's useful to actually separate gender as, the social expression
because gender is different in every
sex.
society. So,
well, I mean,
there's lots of overlap, but it is different. Yeah,
sure. But like the social roles that are inhabited by men and women in various societies have been radically different from time to time.
Well, I don't know if I'd say radically different.
I mean, they're
not radically different.
I mean, there's been times when women were at the head of society.
Very rarely, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as common, but it does exist.
But that says something,
manifested.
doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, but well, going to kind of the gender ideology, like, I mean, I assume you're familiar with Philosophy Tube, right?
Let me see. Philosophy Tube. Is that the Contra clone?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes. Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah,
you're gonna get in big trouble for that.
Yeah, there you go. She's a really.
Dude, I get in big trouble everywhere I go for everything I fucking say. So who gives a shit?
She's a really big trans YouTuber. Has a massive platform.
Yeah.
We watched a video. We've commented a lot of her videos.
if it takes any heat away from me, I actually like her videos better than Contra's. So
okay, well, it doesn't actually, but
no,
I think it's worse because in one of the videos that we watched of hers, she was complaining about the UK medical system essentially, and at the end of it, she says that herself and every trans person she knows are all just looking up, when they go to talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist who's supposed to make the determination whether they have gender dysphoria or not. And the only way that they can do this currently is through self-questionnaires. And she says that herself and every trans person she knows are just lying and cheating. They'll just look up the answers to what the doctors wants to hear, and they'll just feed them whatever they want to know to get the treatments. Sure. And then on top of it, she doesn't think that gender dysphoria is even like a real thing, that there isn't any biological notion to any of this, and anyone for any reason should be able to transition.
I feel like
this idea. I think this idea
you should take up with her because I
the reason I'm bringing it up to you is because I feel like you have I understand that you have a different position. I'm not saying this is your position. I understand you have a different position. What I'm saying is, I think that position is far more common in this field of gender ideology and trans activism than you're aware of.
I don't know what level of commonness that would have. I also don't know the reasoning behind that. I don't know the full context of when those remarks were made. So I mean, me trying to defend that or to try to just gut instinct assess how common or uncommon that is kind of like, I don't.
Yeah, no, I listen, I understand that. I'm just saying that's why our perception of this is very different than yours, is that we view this as the more insidious nature of this is kind of more commonplace, and then you're viewing this as like a rare idea.
All right, well, here's what I feel. Here's my gut. If you want to know my gut instinct.
Sure.
My gut instinct is that when you see a trans woman that doesn't pass, it makes you feel kind of icky, like, ugh, I don't like that. That's really uncomfortable and weird looking to me. And instead of interrogating that feeling and being like, why do I feel that way? Instead of that, you're like, I must find some way to justify this feeling. And, you just go on the hunt and you find something. Oh, yep, there you go. Gender ideology. Oh, it's basically a religion. Oh, the kids are being brainwashed into a cult.
That's so unfair. I don't buy it. Unfair.
No, wait.
Look, even if that.
Fuck you for a second.
That's so unfair.
Hey, hold on. No, shut up for a second. Because you asked for my gut instinct on this shit. So I gave you my gut instinct. I'm not saying that's what's happening.
Well, hold on. Look, let's for the sake of argument, hold on. Let me respond. Sitch, just
here you go.
For the sake of argument. Even if that is completely true, and I think that is true of some people, obviously not Sitch and I. We're above that. Okay, we don't get those.
I'm sorry, I was just putting it out there as an idea.
We don't post hoc rationalize our way to some sort of truth. Even if that is true, and it is true in a lot of people's situation, it doesn't change the reality of the objective world, and that's what we're talking about. So go ahead, Sitch.
I don't.
Well, let me just say, I think what you're talking about, I think that is like the overwhelming majority of people who have feeling, not who are listening to our channels, because our audience is all enlightened.
Yeah, our audience.
Individuals.
Very
but other
smart,
people, all the normies out there in the world. I do think, they're just mostly reacting to things from a gut intuitive level. And I agree with you. A lot of people that are, anti-trans just do have these gut intuitions, completely, and they look to justify it. Right. But that's, from where I'm coming from. Because I remember, when I was taking psych classes, a million years ago in high school, before this was, even a thing anyone talked about, I had a psych teacher talking about all these issues. And I started to have, we were having these conversations about all these things too. And it was just looked at as like a very medical procedure, back then. And then when all of a sudden this becomes big and I see it becoming like this identity thing as opposed to just a medical procedure, that's when I'm like, this is where I start to see problems with it.
Right.
So I don't think I'm operating under this, like, I'm just controlled by my disgust intuition.
Sure. Yeah, we don't do that.
There you go.
So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
This is a very important question. If you guys were to, do some introspection and you realize like we're actually trans, would you guys change your name to Madam and Bitch? That's what I want.
I mean,
that'd be a pretty good thing to do.
I think our channel would probably hit 1 million subscribers in like a month if we actually did that.
That's true.
If we both dual transition.
And well, it's in there. I mean, hey, look, you want to prove that this is all bullshit. Go ahead.
Why do you think I haven't done a face reveal yet? Obviously, I'm going to come out in more than one way.
The thing, it could, like, I don't necessarily know that the science is settled on all this stuff.
All right,
that's all I'm saying. So
I do have a serious question. Here's my serious question. Okay. To
sure. You said this was serious last time, so
this time it's actually
this time is really okay. Good.
So you're making the comparison between religion and trans stuff over and over again, right? So you say like this trans stuff is expecting me. Sorry, you said trans ideology.
Right.
Trans ideology is expecting you to believe something that's like scientifically unproven or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
So what specifically is that? Like, what is the thing that's like, I cannot just believe this? Like, what is the thing that is being, that you're expected to believe, that you look at and you're like, no?
It's a blank, we talk about it's a blank slate gender idea.
That people are born in the wrong body. I don't know that that's been proven. I mean, I think people can aspire to change their sex. Like, I have your position, basically a libertarian point of view. If adult decides, hey, I want to start living as the opposite gender, I say knock yourself out. Like, the thing that bothers me is when people start stepping in and saying, oh, well, there's a scientific reason for this, and this person has some sort of mental condition that society needs to step in and say that's okay. Like, we didn't come up with mental conditions for goth people. We didn't come up with mental conditions for punk rockers. They decided punk rockers were like, I want to live my life as a punk rocker. And they just did it. They didn't say society has to come in and validate me all day and basically, suck me off because this is my identity. That bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah, but you don't really need like drugs and stuff to be a punk rock. I mean, I guess you can.
Well, it's better with drugs. Let's face it. Come on,
like the straight edge people and stuff.
You take that back.
No, I mean, but like, you don't. There's not really a medical component to being a punk rocker or anything. Where there's definitely a medical component.
Well,
to being
I mean, you
trans.
would argue that.
Wait a minute.
You would argue.
Wait.
Okay,
I agree, but as you asked, what is part of the thing that we're talking about that we're supposed to accept? That's
what I'm trying to get down.
Right,
to.
But I agree. It should be medical. Part of the thing that's unscientific is that the trying to demedicalize, being having gender dysphoria, and trying to say, well, it's not a mental illness, not a medical condition.
I don't know that I accept that premise, though. I don't know that I accept. I don't know that I accept the premise that they are trying to demedicalize it, because I don't know.
Okay. I just feel like from everyone that we look at from these conversations.
I mean, you're usually who the people are talking about when they say they, by the way. So.
Well, wait. So why is there this big push to try to say, gender dysphoria is not a mental illness? What is that?
I mean, I don't know. What is that? Where?
Everywhere. What do you mean? walk into a trans forum somewhere on the internet and be like, "Is being trans a mental illness?" And everyone's gonna say, "No, fuck you."
I don't think being trans is a mental illness, but I mean, like, gender dysphoria is a mental illness.
And right. Okay. But well, I guess that gets into the question.
I mean,
I'm coming from the position people shouldn't even be identifying as trans without gender dysphoria in the first place.
Well, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a.
I don't know. Are we just saying, is that just impasse?
Do you think that people that don't do any transitioning whatsoever, like medically, with surgeries or hormones, should they still be able to identify as trans?
Yeah, but they got to also acknowledge that shit can be pretty fucking confusing. If you look 100% like a dude and you're just like, I'm Sarah.
Well, why let them do that? Well, why acknowledge that?
Why not? What's it hurt? What's it hurting? What's going to happen?
Because it creates this weird situation where it
creates confusion.
I mean, a lot of things create a weird situation. If I walk into a fucking, Walmart and I can fucking see the 600-pound woman's ass hanging off over the fucking sides of the little motorized scooter she's on, and that's an awkward situation. But
so when I say causes a weird situation, what I was saying is it creates a situation where essentially people who are pushing to demedicalize gender dysphoria do so under the guise of saying, well, trans isn't a mental illness. And they use this term confusion because most people, not the educated people talking or the educated people listening, but most people out there in the world, they don't know what gender dysphoria is. They think trans and gender dysphoria is the same thing. And that's how most people interpret it.
Well, I mean, look, if you're coming at it from my perspective, I don't want gender to exist. So I'm fine with whatever destroys it. If there's a period of confusion along the way, I'm fine with it.
What do you mean by that? So
price of doing business.
So men and women can.
He wants there to be no social pressure to adhere to gender behavior.
Right. I think that people should be assessed individually and not necessarily so much lumped into groups and tribes and these things.
Sure.
I think that everyone should be an island. I think that we need to kind of try to move away from groupthink to some extent.
You're so liberal. You're so right-wing liberal. I can't believe you.
All right.
Well, there's two positions I can see here, though. There's position I want, people to be able to dress and act and pursue whatever jobs they want, regardless. I don't want to attach a social stigma or a social gendered stigma to any job or activity whatsoever,
or racial stigma or any other.
Right, and then we're just going to have one bathroom for public bathrooms, and everyone's going to use it, male or female. So
I'm in favor of that. Yeah, that's fine with me.
So that's a much different position than just getting rid of gender stereotypes.
Sure. No, I don't think it is. I think you have to do. I think one kind of necessarily follows the other.
Do you think
that's one baby that does have to be thrown out with the bathwater, in my opinion?
I'm sorry. You said you want to throw out gender bathrooms. Is that include sports too, or just bathrooms and locker rooms?
All bathrooms, all locker rooms. I want to live in the Starship Troopers universe on that front.
I mean, that'd be nice. I don't think that's possible.
It is.
I don't think. Well, no, I don't think it is because.
No, it is. Trust me.
Okay, I don't think it's possible widespread because I think there is psychological value to people covering up their sex organs, and I think there's an evolutionary reason why people.
I've been going in the men's bathroom my entire life. I've never once seen a dick.
You said locker rooms, though. I thought we were talking about.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, then have private changing areas like you do in a fucking dresser room. Then.
Okay, I don't see what the point of doing that is. But
why not?
Because people feel generally more comfortable not undressing in front of other sexes.
I mean, I don't feel uncomfortable undressing in front of any fucking buddy, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's you, right? But that's you.
So yeah, give me the privacy booth. The people who are squeamish can get the privacy booth. The people who don't give a fuck can just do it out in the open.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I got sidetracked from whatever we were
talking. Did you want to go back to anything?
You were distracted because we were talking about naked people.
We were talking about naked people. Oh no. Oh, so wait, does that apply to sports too, or is it just locker rooms? And
I don't care. Everything. All across the board. I think that sports we should just start fucking, instead of trying to do the gender thing, I think we should just do it by skill level. It's like, hey, can you reach this?
It already is that way.
Can you reach this level of proficiency in the sport? All right, then you can play.
Well,
and there's going to be teams where it's going to be like mostly women. There's going to be teams where it's going to be mostly men. But that's
but the women are going to be shunted to like much lower skill level leagues, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think most women would appreciate that, but
well, they're going to have to get used to it.
What is the benefit to doing that? Like, what is the purpose of doing that?
The benefit to doing that is that we don't have to live in a society where everything is decided and determined by gender, and you can do whatever you want.
No, but the
benefit of that is more freedom for individuals.
I fully believe we could have a society where people are not discriminated on the basis of their gender, like on an individual level. Like you meet a man or woman, you don't make a bunch of prescriptions about them. I think we could live in that society and still have, sex segregated sports.
No,
you don't think that's possible?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
Just no. I don't agree with you.
Fair enough. You said the thing I want to go back to is we were talking about the. I guess this comes up. We were talking about the left.
I mean,
and the right.
you basically just did a separate but equal, in my opinion, right? Like, yeah.
Well, we've literally accepted that for sex as being fair and just.
But is it?
I think it is. I think most people alive think it is. Women aren't the ones complaining about this. It's.
There's tons of women complaining about how their sports are not treated the same, actually. But okay.
Well, no, they're complaining that they don't get enough press, but they're not complaining that they're not playing against the males.
Yeah, right? Sure, fair.
So,
well, they do have complaints. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but it's about but it's they want society to basically view female sport physical competition as being as valued as male competition.
And honestly, the best ally they've got right now is trans women. Because all of a sudden, a bunch of people are pretending to care about female sports that never did before. So, it's all part of the fucking plan to get female sports taken seriously.
Yeah. There you go. But going back to the unless you want to say something else about the trans topic, I want to ask you about how you're defining left and right. How are you defining left and right?
I'm basically just boiling it down to like, are you pro or anti-capitalist?
Really? Single factor.
What is
that's the I've tried. I mean, look, when it comes to these political affiliations and shit, there's a million and one people that'll tell you a million and one different. I mean, if you look at what is broadly called the online left, the ideological similarity from one person to the other is almost fucking nil. Like it's just like insane how little fucking commonality there is. So I've literally just had to boil it down to the most basic of questions, which to me is like, are you pro-capitalism or are you anti-capitalism?
Doesn't that create like weird situations where, like technically the Nazis would be left-wing at that point?
I mean, the Nazis did come out of like a left-wing fucking social movement. So
I know they did, but the left doesn't usually like to acknowledge that.
I don't think that the Nazis, I ultimately don't think they were left-wing. But I think that they used left-wing animus to propel themselves forth.
By your metric, they are left-wing, though.
Yeah,
that's the problem of the single factor.
They're not capitalists.
I mean, no, the Nazis were super capitalists.
No, they're anti-capitalists.
No,
they're socialists.
No, they're not socialist. If you look, I mean, they
National Socialists.
Yeah, they had socialist in their name. The People's Democratic Republic of the Congo has democratic in its name. Like, who fucking cares?
Well, no,
they had use any word you want. But no, they had privately controlled businesses
controlled by the state. They say
right. Oh, I should mention that I don't. I mean, do you think like the CCP is anti-capitalist? Because I don't.
Well, they have some. They use some kind of incentives, but all businesses.
I don't consider.
The buck stops at the state with all businesses.
Yeah, I consider that state-controlled capitalism. I think markets
state capitalism.
Should be. Yeah, I don't think that should exist.
Okay, so wait. When you say anti-capitalist, you mean basically co-op model. Right.
I mean markets. I mean markets in general. I mean money. I mean like a society that uses the dollar as the motivating factor to get people to do things.
Okay, but wait. I'm trying to simplify. So, because you said that China, you don't consider China as left wing, right?
No.
Okay, so like because under socialism and communism, you can have under I believe under Marx, you can have situations where there is state ownership of businesses, and that would still be considered socialist or Marxist.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, okay. I just feel like you have a very strange definition.
Yeah,
a very unique definition.
That's usually me because I don't. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes it can take a while to figure it out.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so yeah, because the Nazis had corporatism, and they weren't. There were some private businesses, and they were mostly using their economic. They didn't really care about. My argument is that the Nazis didn't really care about capitalism. They were just trying to enact their cultural policies by whatever means possible.
But like they definitely had people getting rich. They had private business owners. Like, yeah, I mean, like it was all being orchestrated to some extent by the state, but there were still like factory owners getting rich. And like what I'm talking about,
those factory owners that were getting rich had to support the Nazi party. Otherwise, their factory was taken away from them, and it was given to someone.
So it's not, but it wasn't like this factory now belongs to its workers, which to me that would be socialism. Or communism,
Well, what if
that'd be an anti-capitalist fucking sentiment.
Are you saying, okay, just to drill down a little bit. So if you have a factory, say we have a society where all the businesses are co-op models, there's no private businesses. People are still going to be motivated by making money. Just they'll be making for themselves.
I mean, I would like to get
anti-capitalist, or is it only anti-capitalist once it becomes a moneyless society?
It would be a step towards anti-capitalism, in my opinion. I think there's still too. I think there's still too many market forces and things involved even at that level. But I would find that preferable and far. I think it would be a great stride towards a more socialist economy.
But so under your definition, you really just mean, the classical communist, no money society utopian idea. Okay.
And I by the way, don't ask me how to create a society without money.
Fair enough.
I don't fucking know.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm curious, what is the point of conceptualizing left and right this way? It feels like your definition is very different than everyone else's. It's kind of like putting you in this weird sphere where if you say left and right, no one can know what you're talking about.
I think most people still generally do. Because honestly, I think of the people I know of who consider themselves to be on the left, I feel like most are, by my definition, anti-capitalist to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is almost like the one thing that truly unites people that I consider to be on the left.
Yeah.
Once again, I mean, I hate these kind of semantics things. I really hate labels in general. I understand they're necessary for communication, but this is exactly why I hate them and why they always break down for me, because I'm never able to conceptualize something by a stringent definition that is instantly communicatable to others around me without some sort of protracted discussion like this.
Right. But that's just the fallacy of verbal communication.
Well,
there's no way around
the purpose of having this discussion is so we can drill down to that stuff, though. Obviously. Yeah.
But you mentioned that my definition seems a little strange to you, but I'm a little strange. So I don't know what to tell you about that.
Fair enough.
Strange is cool. I can dig strange.
Mm-hmm.
So just Sitch, I don't want to cut you off if you.
No, there was nowhere else to go from there. But
okay, I want to ask you about your ideology, TJ. We talked a little bit about at the beginning, and it's for me. I would assume that it's something close to like anti-theism. Like you think the world would be a better place without religion because you want people to believe things that are scientifically accurate, that are correct.
Sure.
Is that it, or?
I mean, look, it's not just that, but yeah, I mean, I think that people should try to strive to be rational and base their conclusions on the available evidence. I don't think that conjecture is useless. I don't think that a lot of things I think ultimately boil down to subjectivity. Mm-hmm. So I think there's still plenty of room for people to play around with different ideas, even in a society that does kind of limit you in terms of what you can believe to the evidence. But when I look at society, I think there's people who look at it and they see things they want to prune out, and there's people who look at it and see there's things they want to add on, and usually there's a combination of the two. But if I'm looking at the way things are now, I'm definitely more of an abolisher. There's a lot of things that I think should just go away, more than I think there's just things that I think should be added on.
So, these are like cultural things, like behaviors or.
Well, culture itself.
What are you talking about abolishing? Okay, culture itself. But you admitted at the beginning, you said it's like we were talking about dogma, and you said at some level society has to cohere, so people have to be on the same page and believing certain things about the world. Otherwise, you get just a mess.
100% true.
Okay, so, but this is what are we talking about? Like, we can't abolish everything, obviously. I
mean, some things have to exist. Unless the planet blows up, then we can abolish everything, I guess.
Right, but I think the world would be better if those dogma things were based in factual reality, were based in truth. I do think that, I mean, I'm willing to admit, and there's been some scientific research on this, that people can believe untrue things, and believing those untrue things can make their lives more meaningful and even successful. So they're practicing an ideology that's based on, whatever. But it's not truth.
When it comes to something like that, when it comes to something like religion, my stance would be, I do feel like I'm an anti-theist on the level that I don't want there to be organized religion. I would say that if someone has a personal sort of belief that is uniquely theirs, that makes them feel like it's easier to get through the day, or motivates them, or makes them feel like some sort of cosmic force is on their side, then more power to them. Don't give a shit. But don't place that ahead of reason, and don't dogmatize that on a broader scale.
Okay. Don't force it on other people, it sounds like you're saying.
Right. Or don't even talk to other people about it. Make that something that's private, you know, or maybe something you only talk to about your closest friends or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I just don't want there to be organized religion. I feel like, you know, look, when I'm, in Las Vegas or something, and I'm like, oh man, I got a feeling number 7's coming up on the roulette wheel or whatever, you know, like that's an irrational feeling, but I don't think that's a harmful feeling. I don't think me thinking like, oh man, 7 is hurting anybody. It might hurt me if I'm like everything on 7 and then, 17, sir. It's like, fuck. But by and large, I don't think you can even really reasonably expect to stamp out all traces of irrationality and subjectivity. And I don't think people would really want you to. I feel like that's part of the flavor of life.
Well, I'm not in favor of getting rid of subjectivity. I'm just talking about the broader idea of how to make society cohere. Like there are these different ideologies that are competing for space in people's daily existence. And I mean, I'm willing to admit, it sounds like you're admitting kind of the same thing here, that someone can adopt the ideology of some religion, like Christianity or Islam or whatever religion it is, Judaism, and they can know that that belief system contains things that are factually incorrect, but that, you know, subscribing to this belief system actually improves their quality of life, and that's why they do it. I think, by the way, I mean,
do
you accept that?
You say there's science on that, and
yeah,
I'm sure that there's probably something there. I do think that the amount to which religion improves people's lives has been kind of exaggerated. But mean, you said you've actually seen some work on it, so I'd have to look at that.
Joseph Henrich is a guy. David M. Buss is a guy who has studied this kind of stuff. The Secret of Our Success is a great book if you're interested in it. And he even goes through, like, basically different tribal religions and how they have, different kinds of belief systems that actually, present these cooking habits that actually improve their quality of life. And,
the unfortunate thing about it is that you have something like, all right, so here's this belief system, and maybe that improves your existence in one way or another, or in multiple ways even. But the problem is that if you have that belief system, it makes you infinitely more manipulable as well, especially by leaders in that religion. So I think that, if there's a way to preserve sort of the positive aspects of irrational belief and get rid of the drawbacks, I'd be willing to look into that. But by and large, I think that the elimination is probably a good thing, even if it does have some positive effects.
So you think adopting any ideology makes you manipulable? I mean, that's the point.
Oh, well, I mean, of course.
The point of an ideology is to manipulate you into certain behaviors.
Well,
obviously.
not necessarily.
I'm just saying, look, you introduce a group of people, you introduce an ideology. That ideology is the set of behaviors that they have to interact with the world. Them interacting the world in a very evolutionary sense is going to either improve their lot or lessen their lot, depending upon the ideology, right?
Like group psychology being like, I think it's kind of something that doesn't even necessarily always come up out of like malice or pre-planning. I think a lot of times it's sort of like a naturally occurring thing where it's
I agree.
If there's a group of people and that group of people is like, here's what we believe. And oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then, some people say like, well, I believe about 90% of that, but there's a few things I don't agree with.
Right.
And then there's always going to be little things where like they come up against like some kind of issue or something that like makes them kind of have to take a side one way or another on one of their issues. And it's like, I think we should go this way. No, I think we should go this way. And there's always gonna be these splits, and there's always going to be like parts of the group are going to put pressure on other parts of the group to conform to the ideology and stuff. And that's going to happen in any sort of ideological group.
So, but how do you tell which one is the successful? Let's say group A and group B split off.
Yeah.
How do you tell which has the better ideology?
unfortunately, usually that's going to boil down to subjectivity. It's just going to be like,
well, can't we hold on, can't we objectively measure which group thrives and which group ends up a disaster?
But I mean, like that presupposes that what's going to make a group thrive fundamentally is the truth, quote unquote.
Well, no.
Right?
Listen, I said this ideology could be completely fictitious. Like they could adopt things that aren't.
I mean, but like, I don't know. There's not only is there there's no objective measure by which to be like which group is more successful and like if there's a group that's like
there is an objective measure. It's that which group thrives and which group is a disaster.
What if the group that fails? What if we decide like, hey, that group did fail, but they had a hell of a time on their way to failure. Like
we have to.
The friends we made along the way, kind of thing. Like I don't know.
Assuming you agree on a subjective goal, right?
Or what if that group only failed because of external factors? So there's so many fucking variables. It's kind of hard to objectively kind of measure that, no matter what you try to do. And even like well-being is not an objective measure. Like if I fucking spend my every day fucking snorting a rail of coke and drinking a fucking bottle of whiskey and then driving around running over trash cans and pedestrians and shit, but I'm having a fucking time of my life, I'm certainly not contributing to well-being, but maybe I'm having a fucking blast,
right?
So I don't know.
Well, I think in terms of a group of people adopting the ideology, my central premise is that they can adopt an ideology that is not based in objective reality and can live a more thriving lifestyle. It's actually the same. It's the argument that I see closest to fitting the facts of the trans ideology, because I don't think the facts of their ideology fit the objective world. I think they're completely wrong about the objective world. But we allow them to transition and to engage in this behavior because they will live a more meaningful life. We seem to accept that with them, even though they may not believe something that's scientifically accurate. Does that seem correct to you?
I mean, I asked what the exact nature of the scientific inaccuracy is, and it seems kind of vague.
That people cannot be born in the wrong body.
But I mean, like, even if you don't necessarily have to accept people can be born in the wrong body, like a fucking Freaky Friday scenario. The point is that they have gender dysphoria. It's been determined that the best way to treat that is for them to socially transition. Like, I don't know. It doesn't, like, I don't really. It just where's the grand, like. Look, you don't have to start accepting magic or something. Like, it's like, oh shit, when God was fucking throwing souls into corpses.
It can be determined.
Threw a male fucking soul into a female fucking shell. Damn it.
It's being determined. It's being determined that they will have a better quality of life. It hasn't been determined that they are going to change their biological sex. That's what it hasn't determined.
But that's how you treat a mental illness. If gender dysphoria is a mental illness, which, I mean, maybe some people will get mad at me for saying that, but like, I don't see how else you could.
Some people will get mad at you for saying that, but
I don't see how else you could possibly qualify it. But if the treatment for that is gender transitioning, then like that should be the treatment. But I don't necessarily think that should be I don't think that's the only valid reason to transition either. So
right, but I'm only bringing it up because I want to separate the ideology and how the ideology impacts the natural world and the natural world. And just because, I'm a scientifically minded person, I like to believe true things. I like to think of myself on team truth. I want to know what's factually going on here. And I feel like I'm getting a lot of, just gaslighting from the trans community on this stuff, as if we've reached some sort of scientific consensus, in the same way that you'd get gaslighting from the intelligent design people about how they've found the ultimate proof that God exists.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been any sort of like gaslighting, at least en masse. I don't know. I've not seen evidence of that.
Okay. Sitch,
how much more time do you have, TJ?
Hold on.
We've been talking for about an hour.
4:43. Yeah.
Minutes,
I can talk for a little longer.
Nice. Let me see if there's any super chats directed to you. Anonymous Coward for $20. Thank you. Says, ask TJ if he watched Stephen Michael Davis's video on Nina Turning's tweeting about the CEOs producing less value than McDonald's line cooks.
No, I haven't seen that. Sorry.
Are you familiar with that tweet?
Nina
She said,
Nina
she said,
Turner?
yeah, she said something like, McDonald's fry cooks provide more productivity for McDonald's than the CEO does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things that's true in one sense and not in another. I think that there's a point to be made there, but I don't necessarily think that it's like necessarily something you could take true on a super literal sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think at the end of the day, what's being said is like, if there's no CEO, it's conceivable there could still be a McDonald's. If there's no fry cooks, it's really not conceivable. And unless, you just go fully to automation, which we probably will within the next 15, 20 years. So,
I mean, I don't know.
I think it's actually, I think at this point with Chat GPT, it might actually be quick. It might actually be the CEO that becomes
just gonna have a Chat GPT that does it.
I think that the CEO might actually be a more automatable away job at this point than line cook.
I would say, the way sort of these capital businesses are structured, by definition, they can't function with a CEO. So I guess I don't know what you mean by that.
I mean, I think that it's not impossible to conceive of a configuration whereby you would not need that CEO role.
Well, you'd still but you still the board would make the CEO decisions or something?
Something like that.
Right. But that's not really what she's talking about.
Right. I don't think so either.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, I think it's a discussion point.
Why do you dislike capitalism so much, TJ?
I think there are certain instances where it can be pretty useful in terms of motivating people. I think there are a number of areas where profit motive is not necessarily the healthiest motive.
Yeah.
I think like the existence of like the insurance industry and stuff like that kind of show that to me. The idea that more and more often the government is subsidizing these private businesses. More and more often we see that what were once publicly run services are now being handed off to private industry. And then our tax dollars are being funneled into the hands of companies that we had no consumer say in whatsoever.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're just talking about corruption.
Everything is turning into but it's just inherent. Like there's no way
corruption is inherent in capitalism.
The nature of the system I think it's just an emergent property of the fucking profit motive we set up.
I think we should automate away all the jobs that people wouldn't do unless they were getting paid to do it. Like all the jobs that people would do even if they weren't getting paid, we should not automate those away, obviously, because people want to do those.
I think that the main thing for me is automate away as many jobs as you possibly can. But I mean, this is another reason why I feel this way, because you're touching on the futurism stuff.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm a futurist.
Yeah, me too. And I think that one of the things is, one of the things that scares me about this technology, everyone's so scared of like AI and automation and stuff. But the thing that scares me about it is just like the power dynamic that exists in society right now. Because, there's a group of people that are on the top, and then there's like a bunch of people who are laborers. And as the laborers become more and more unnecessary, it's like, hey, what do the billionaire elites really need us for at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gets to this thing where it's like they're trying to build vessels to carry them to space. We know for a fact that these guys have like doomsday bunkers all over the world. That's not conspiracy theory. That's just like fact. We know that there's a lot of like looming, financial and ecological disasters on the horizon. We see that this automation tech is getting better and better. We see this AI tech is getting better and better. And like these technologies are not at all democratized. Like we don't have much power over these. All this technology is in private hands, and that kind of scares me.
Well, competing private hands, so that's
sure. I mean, competing to an extent, but ultimately, I think most of them are competing. They're competing a little bit against each other, but I think they're more competing against us.
Yeah, I am nervous about artificial intelligence because I think artificial intelligence will reshape the world in the same way that nuclear weapons did. So I think it's important that America,
I think it actually
gets to artificial intelligence before one of these autocracies does.
I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, America is just an autocracy with window dressing. So I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah, I think we probably disagree on that pretty wholeheartedly. But someone in the chat, I don't know if I know your Kyle Rittenhouse position. Do you like hate Kyle Rittenhouse or are indifferent to Kyle Rittenhouse?
I have a kind of a mixed bag of a position on that.
Okay.
I think that legally speaking, from what I know about the law and shit, I feel like him not being charged with a crime was correct. But I still think everything he did makes him a total piece of shit. And I think he should fucking die. So.
Wow.
Hold on a second here. For being a piece of shit, he should die?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty low bar, just being a piece of shit.
Well, I don't mean he should literally die.
Okay.
I just
good. You're being hyperbolic.
Figuratively.
I'm just saying fuck him. That's all.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you could look at it that
I don't think he broke the law. I don't think he broke the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what I could see, he did not break the law.
So look, I
just think with the moment you fucking take a gun and drive to a fucking protest and start looking to fucking start shit,
that didn't happen. That's not what happened.
Standing in front of a storefront, being like, anyone who tries to rob this store is gonna have to go through me. It's like, fuck that. You're not.
He was hired. He was hired to protect the business. So when he gave his Kevlar to his friend who was on the roof, was that him being a piece of shit?
I have no idea. I don't follow it that much.
If we're both going to protect a used car lot together, TJ,
and
there's going to be hoodlums there with guns, and I have one Kevlar vest, and I say, TJ, this Kevlar vest belongs to me, but I am going to give it to you, TJ. I want you to be safe tonight. Am I a piece of shit, or am I like the best friend you've ever had?
You're a piece of shit. The minute you agreed,
the
minute you agreed as a 17-year-old to go fucking privately defend a bit, you're not a security expert. You know what the fuck you're doing.
Well, he was acting as a security guard though. So
at 17 years old, fuck that.
Well, if there say there was a 25-year-old, veteran security expert. I mean, I think the only difference would have been that he would have immediately shot the guy instead of running away from him. I don't think it would have been that different of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, well, it wouldn't have probably.
Well, okay, but I assume you still would just think that's an immoral action to even go there in the first place.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I mean, if you really want to get into it, I don't really like the idea of standing out there with a gun defending some fucking business in the first place. So
why not?
Right.
I don't really believe in it.
It's not like it's an anti-capitalist.
So like the Indian people that own the car lot just have to absorb, the hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. And
Sitch, don't play the race card, okay? They're just normal Americans.
The normal American Indian immigrants just have to absorb hundreds of thousands of damages and just shrug.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's.
I mean, that's
horribly immoral.
You got to take a stand somewhere.
Yeah, but why there? That seems so immoral.
No, I don't think it is. I think if you're looking at it as broadly as I am, it's like, what's worth more, that human life or that property? And I'm always going to say that human life should be protected. Well,
it depends upon the person, obviously.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't it?
No, I don't believe in that.
Do you think so? You think let's use a crazy example. Say I'm assuming the car lot's worth more than the life of Hitler, right? No.
What? No.
TJ, you can't support defending the life of Hitler. Come on.
I would know. No,
for a bunch of used cars. Look.
I mean, he should spend.
Hitler's life is not worth a tricycle.
If Hitler was alive and real, I think he should spend his life in jail. But I don't believe in killing him.
Really?
No. I don't believe it. Okay. I don't believe in depriving any human being of life.
Well, I assume you do if they're going to kill you, right?
What?
If they're going to kill you, I assume.
If someone's going to, I mean, if it's down to a life for a life, then obviously the aggressive life has to go.
Right, but if it's any sort of destruction of property, or if they're a mass murderer, but you can get them peacefully, or not peacefully, but without killing them, you know, that should be the tact, essentially.
Yes.
And so, no death penalty.
No.
Gotcha. Okay, I mean, I completely disagree with you, but
it's fine.
Fair enough.
It's fine. I mean, that's one of those issues that's just completely subjective. So,
yeah, I guess to an extent. I mean,
to 100%. There's no extent to which it's objective. There might be objective facts about it, but your opinion is always up to you.
Yeah, fair enough.
TJ, is there another super chat? I want to ask TJ about the election because.
All right, hold that thought because I'm going to grab some more water. Really
okay, take your time. You read a couple super chats, Sitch.
Anonymous Car for $20 says something to think about. If you're in a debate and it devolves into Sitch's law, you can fall into a deconstructionist trap when the topic is an archetypical or abstract. Example, define masculinity, CRT. What is a woman?
Yeah.
I don't know what that. You can fall into a deconstructionist trap when the topic is.
Well, you loop around just.
Yeah.
Basically trying to figure out the subjective term. I mean, I try to avoid that. We here at the Sitch and Adams show always try to, dive down to the actual substance of the argument.
Right. So, I mean, that's generally when we're arguing about definitions, my goal is to not do that. So say, well, let me accept your definition, but try to argue like the actual point that's being discussed here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway.
Any other cool? Look, Christian Baller's weighing in. He got it. Christian, you got your tweet read at the beginning of the stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Christian Baller upgraded to outside the simulation. Thank you so much.
Did he really? My goodness. Wow.
Yeah. Big spender.
That's like a $50 tier, man.
Yeah. Hey, for $10, Christian Baller, thanks so much. Says, I got a promotion at work with a huge pay raise. Well, that's fantastic.
We won't tell TJ about that.
There you go. Only makes sense to have a raise in free will. Glad to be back outside the simulation, boys. Here's to 1,000 more streams and Adam deepfakes. XOXO. There it is.
Well, I might have to be nicer to Christian Baller with his deepfakes now that he's in the $50 a month tier. That's very unfortunate.
There you go.
What's up, TJ?
Welcome.
Hey.
So this election is going to be.
Well, wait, before you say, I just want to say someone had something that's interesting at that. White for 11 months says, TJ, you should talk to Jesse Single about who's pushing gender ideology. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, that's true.
He's a journalist.
Hold on 1 second. I don't know why I can't hear my own microphone here.
Oh, I always turn off I can't stand hearing my own microphone in my head.
Really?
I can't.
Oh.
I can't take not hearing it, and I
can't.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part of the show. Listen to my voice. What are you talking
about?
Well,
because I'll be yelling, and then it's like I'm like deafening myself because I'm yelling into the microphone.
Just turn it down.
Shit. All right, I found the problem.
I just turn it off.
Okay. Sorry. What was the
Jesse Single? He's a journalist. You should if you reach out to him if you want to talk to him, he'd be interesting. He's super well versed in like following a lot of the trans issue stuff, and I think he's a pretty. He's not like one of these, he's not like Michael Knowles or something. He's pretty fair, I think, on a lot of these topics.
Okay. Well, I'll look into it.
Yeah.
What do you want to ask?
So I just want to talk about the election a bit. How insane is it going to be for you if Trump is reelected?
Mildly, I guess.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, whether Trump gets elected or not, it's going to be, it's hard for me to get particularly worked up about something that's just like so inevitably dismal for me.
Right.
Like, because if Trump wins, Trump wins. If Biden wins, Biden wins. If DeSantis wins, DeSantis wins. I don't know. I don't give. I'm like, eh.
It sounds like you have a kind of
like what kind of horrible, biting, gnawing, stinging insect will be dropped on us in the future. Who fucking cares almost? But
right.
Yeah.
Well, you do this thing, TJ. You start off saying something that sounds completely reasonable, and then I figure out that nested inside that thing that you've said that sounds fine, perfectly fine on the face of it, there's buried this idea that it's so caustic that it's just would be invisible to anyone hearing it unless you elaborated on it. So that's interesting. You're basically saying it's not going to be any big deal. It's just going to be, World War III and total catastrophe.
Well, how big of a deal do you think that is? I don't know.
Well,
on a geological time scale, Adam, it's not a big deal. Okay.
Yeah, are we taking the cosmic perspective? Are we taking the 5 minutes perspective? Like, what are we doing?
I didn't freak out the first time Trump was elected, but I know a lot of people did kind of freak out, and that
I didn't either. I was definitely in the camp of like, give him a chance. Who knows? Let's see.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then I thought to myself, for most of his presidency, standard issue fucking Republican.
But
and
the
then
response,
the January 6th stuff happens, and it's like. oh man, this guy's kind of like got fascist ambitions, huh? Like, okay, well, shit. I guess that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never really liked him. I never really liked him, but I was give him a chancer to start with, and he didn't really, because he kind of spoke out of both sides of his mouth that first time. You know, he would say so many things that seemed contradictory, and you were just like, let's see. We're not going to really know where he really stands until he actually starts governing, and then it was very standard issue in a lot of ways.
It seemed like
tax cuts and
right.
You know, tough on crime or whatever, but not much else.
He ran as like a right-wing populist, which has overlap with the left, and it was kind of interesting. People were questioning what direction he was going to go, and I think at first he did try. I remember very early in his presidency, there was, I forget what it was about. There was some legislation that was being argued over, and he actually sounded like he was going to make a deal with the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, and he was kind of making fun of the Republicans. And then Mitch McConnell kind of sat him down and gave him the talk about how he couldn't do that. And then he kind of went back, he kind of went back on all that stuff. So,
yeah, very strange. I don't know. I felt like there was at least some potential there because he seemed like a bit of a loose cannon. I thought maybe he would kind of knock some shit loose, but I was actually kind of disappointed to see that the way he governed was pretty generic Republican politician, not all that different from how like a Bush or someone would govern. Of course, Bush did get us into Iraq, so I think he's still considerably worse.
In ways, there was a difference. I mean, I don't think, obviously Bush wouldn't have been so isolationist, right? So kind of dismissive of NATO and stuff.
That's that's just kind of like the evolving Republican ethos, though.
The populist isolationist.
We're going to have 2 Trump versus Biden elections in a row. That's a little, that's a little insane.
I'm not counting out. A lot of people are starting to count out DeSantis because he didn't look as good in some of the most recent polls, and it seems like there's like this resurgence of like interest in Trump as like people are like, wait, maybe we can put him in again.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that there's a pretty good chance that if DeSantis can stand up to Trump in the primaries, then there might be there's still a pretty good chance of him grabbing the reins.
Yeah. I agree.
But I don't know. It really depends on how ferocious is Trump going to get on that stage and how, what's DeSantis going to throw back at him. And they both kind of have to be careful because, Trump is the standard bearer of the party and DeSantis is the upstart of the party that has a lot of potential. And I think that if Trump takes on DeSantis too hard, it kind of makes him look like he's just for himself and he's not for the party.
Mm-hmm.
But if DeSantis goes after Trump so hard, it's like you're attacking a figure that's beloved to them. So, I mean, like, both of them are kind of incentivized to use kid gloves on each other, but they're both in a situation where they really can't afford to.
Yeah, so I don't think Trump will do that, even though I agree with what you're saying. He should do that, but
I think Trump is more strategic than he might initially appear, I think. And,
I think he's scorched earth, man. He's gonna he's definitely
he's going to decide
DeSantis.
He's going to go that way.
Yeah.
He's going to he's just going to burn DeSantis down because his thinking is not going to be what I just said. His thinking is going to be like, once I burn this fucker down, where are they going to fucking go?
Well, it depends upon whether or not you believe in reality he will do a third party run if he loses the primary. I feel like he might. I feel like that's how scorched earth he is.
He's the kind of guy that might do that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if that's his plan, then why not destroy DeSantis? And if DeSantis wins as the Republican nominee, you've already done half your work.
I think basically this doesn't end without one of them being destroyed. Either DeSantis is going to have to tear down Trump or Trump is going to have to tear down DeSantis. So it's just going to get ugly as fuck.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like whatever happens, I think you're going to see whoever proceeds on is just going to be like kind of like battered.
Well, they're going to lose to Joe Biden again.
I mean, like it might not even be Joe Biden. They might fucking put up someone else.
No. Joe Biden could be in a coma and they would wheel him out with an IV drip.
Dude, I feel like I've heard various rumblings of like, oh, we better figure something else out. But
yeah, by people who don't want to vote for Joe Biden again, not by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, every interview I've heard with him or his wife, they say, oh yeah, he's running.
But he has to say that.
Sitch always says this.
But he can't say he's not. He literally cannot say he's not running.
If Joe Biden decided to fucking jump out of this, like what's going to happen is like a year and a half or so before the election, he's going to fucking make an announcement that while his health is still excellent now, he's concerned that it might not be good enough in the future to run again.
This is hopium. Hopium all the way.
We'll see.
No,
We'll see.
I mean, it's really not, because honestly, I feel like anybody they could replace him with would be fucking worse to me. So honestly, it's not.
See, Joe Biden is well liked by the Democrats. They're actually into the job he's doing.
Honestly, like watching, I don't know if you guys have seen these like little fucking president AI things that are fucking everywhere all of a sudden.
Yes.
But like that to me has made both Joe Biden and Trump dangerously more likable to me. Like I have to kind of remind myself, like, that's not how they actually are.
They're not actually playing Minecraft with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not like, that's pretend, you know?
Yes. No, that's interesting. That's a good point.
It kind of does on that emotional level. You kind of like, as you like the character in the video more, it kind of makes you feel a little differently about the person too.
That's very perceptive. You've got to be really going to change people's thoughts on the president.
You got to be fucking cautious about that shit, because like,
interesting.
I don't know how long this trend is going to last of turning these presidents into like these popular characters in these little cute Minecraft things and shit. But like
forever.
If that's a forever trend, then we got to be really cautious to separate the actual politician from the fucking pretend one on the fucking YouTube screen.
We'll learn. People will learn eventually, but
maybe.
Well, I'll say regarding the kids gloves things. I mean, Trump has already accused DeSantis of being a groomer and a pedophile. Sure. So I think the kid gloves we passed beyond that point.
They're all gonna fucking do that now. I mean, that's just like that's standard issue talking point these days.
Right.
Like that doesn't even mean anything anymore. That's like being called a faggot in the 90s now.
There you go. Ronoro Zoro is here for $5. Says, ask TJ if he thinks the Ukrainians' land is worth more than the Russians' lives.
Ukrainian land, Russian lives. I mean, like when you're talking about the invasion of a country, you are talking about like displacement of people, and you're necessarily talking about killing people, because there's never been an invasion that didn't result in death. So I think at that point it translates to you're the aggressor that's encroaching. But once again, I can talk to you in an immediate sense, but I also have to talk to you in the broader sense of I don't think countries should exist. So I don't know. But like I have like a short term sort of like, okay, get into the geopolitics of now and talk in a way that people are going to actually relate to, or say what you actually think, which is that countries as a concept are fucking stupid, and like we shouldn't have arbitrary lines all over the ground telling people where they can go and what rules they have and all this shit.
Well, before I ask you about countries not existing, so like theoretically, I mean, there could have been, like, if Ukraine didn't fight back, right? Like if it was just like Georgia or Crimea, like the Russians would have walked in, they would have, maybe killed Zelensky or whatever, replaced it with some stooge and walked out. A lot less, significantly less people would be killed, significantly less things would be destroyed.
Sure.
Would that be the moral thing to do on that level? Or is living under a government you don't have control over worth fighting for and dying for?
I think that, I mean, to some extent, most of us don't really have much say in what government we exist under. Now, I'm like, we can change, we can move our country or whatever. We can, I guess, acquiesce to invaders when they come. And I mean, look, I mean, it's a strategy that's been used before. There are countries that, when it comes right down to it, if there's an invading force, their kind of attitude is like, I guess we're Russian now for a bit, guys.
Right.
So I don't know, but I think that kind of boils down to a personal choice at that instant.
Well, what do you think Ukraine have taken that route to say, well, we'll just acquiesce?
I mean, I don't feel like I'm comfortable giving Ukraine advice on what they should have done in that situation.
Fair enough.
I believe, as far as what the U.S. should have done, I believe we should have drawn a much harder line in the sand much earlier to prevent the invasion.
How would we have accomplished that?
Just put it down to Russia, like, hey, you cross this line, and it's on.
Like, because they're not going to attack Russia. Like,
they're not going to
military.
No, make it where here's the line. You cross it, we're at war. Russia's not going to cross that fucking line.
No, but what does that mean when we say we're at war? I
mean, like, we're at war. We are at war with Russia.
Yeah, so like our military will attack Russia if you invade Ukraine. Okay,
exactly. Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, like, because Russia's not going to cross that fucking line. There's no fucking way they'd cross it.
I mean,
but we're not willing to take that kind of bold action because we're terrified of that prospect, which, of course, they're terrified of that prospect too, which is exactly why it's a good tactic, in my opinion.
Yeah, but what if they did?
Then World War III.
Well, I think
that's a pretty good incentive not to cross that line, don't you think?
It is, but what if they did? What if they said, "Well, America's bluffing. Joe Biden's an old man. He's not going to do anything about it."
Then, I guess it was a miscalculation at that point, right?
Man.
Why? I don't think you can. I don't think you can put down these lines that you're not willing to back up if people cross them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, Obama kind of did that in 2014, and I think that's part of what helped.
Well, yeah, he made a line in the sand, and it was like, fuck you. And they crossed it, and then...
He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, just minor things. But nothing.
And it's like, oh, well, now we're going to sanction you. But they knew that was the line crossed. You know, like, because we're perfectly willing to do, like, economic sanctions and shit. And just like, oh, yeah, that's going to do something.
How about if we just tell them we're going to nuke them?
Yeah, like, it's going to be the end of the world if you cross this fucking line. So don't cross it. They're not going to be... Russia's not going to be like, wait, so, like, are you honestly thinking Russia's going to be sitting there like, you know what?
Are they going to nuke us?
We want Ukraine. We want Ukraine so fucking bad. Yeah, let's end the world. Let's end the world so we can get Ukraine. Like, they're not going to make that geopolitical chess move. It's like putting your queen right there.
Yeah, but
they will though. Yeah,
they won't.
Fucking dude. No, they won't.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Wait. They're not going to make the chess move where they say let's end the world over Ukraine. What they might make the chess move is saying America is bluffing, and the problem, I guess, it's not
poker. It's chess. Remember that.
Chess has bluffs too, okay, but the problem with what my contention with what you're suggesting is that's essentially Russia made that decision. America and Europe, they didn't say we're going to go to war, but they said, hey, Russia, if you invade Ukraine, you know, there's going to be massive consequences. And Russia's
they know
there's not going to be massive consequences.
Russia knows the massive consequences is just going to be like, we're going to economically sanction, we're going to give weapons to the Ukrainians. They already knew.
Wait a minute. Do you think if Putin had a time machine and he could go back in time, do you think he still would have invaded knowing how it's going right now?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remotely think so. I think he definitely wouldn't do that.
No.
Why do you think that, Sitch? I mean, I'm kind of agnostic on that question.
You think with all the so Russia right now, which is having massive demographic problems before the war, has lost hundreds of thousands of Russian men. And like, this is just bleeding the country dry of men and their military. It's making them their military look like a joke to the rest of the world. And you think that with this knowledge, they would still go through?
First of all, Russia,
because look at what America did in Iraq. You know, like, we stayed there for fucking ever, and it was not.
I think that's a completely different situation.
But it's a different situation for sure.
Well, no, America's a democracy. Russia is an autocracy.
But here's the thing: we wanted. I mean, America was a democracy. Who was the anti-war vote in that fucking situation? You know, like, we didn't have any fucking electoral representation about whether or not to go to war with Iraq or not.
But whether or not Russia invades is based on Putin, not on his electorate. He's not worried about losing the next election.
At the end of the day, the people in power made a decision, and the rest of us are along for the ride.
No, I understand that, but if America,
but what I'm saying is, the important thing about this, though, is I mean, it really doesn't matter what the decision-making process is, because the point is this. You know, when America fucking occupied Iraq for a long time, and it was like, we kept hearing we're losing, it's embarrassing, it's making our military look weak, all the same stuff you're saying right now. And then when we really wanted to get that shit under control, we just did like, all right, massive surge in troops. Boom. And we just fucking, after, it was basically like we tenderized it for a while. And it's like, America's really not doing that good, but we were just wearing it away. And then bam, massive troop infusion. And we fucking took the whole goddamn country basically in like a few months. And like, Russia could do that exact same shit.
No,
I mean, it's right there.
Russia's still in the game, Sitch. I don't think. I mean, they're committing like there's 150,000 troops being deployed in May.
Wait. This is so wrong. This is so wrong.
It's a long game, dude.
In the entirety of the Iraq War, 4,000 American soldiers died.
Sure, but there's
in like a year and a couple of months, over 100,000 Russians have died. The idea that they're like sitting back on their reserve forces and can just let them go to take over the country, that's not happening.
Look, they have 150,000 more coming to join the fight. So
right, and like, not only that, but Russia has not even used its air force to maximum effect.
This is the Russian way they do war. They throw bodies at it.
No, you're so wrong.
I'm telling you, dude, they're grinding the Ukraine down. You're gonna see in a
Sitch
few years.
didn't even think they were gonna invade. So I mean, he's been wrong.
Right.
Before.
So he's already got a track record of wrong.
Okay, you got Adam. I don't even know how you're fucking saying. I don't even know how you're on on this track, Adam. Okay. TJ's crazy. We've already established this.
Well, no, for some reason,
crazy
I mean,
like a fox.
There you go.
No, TJ, you are crazy, but for some reason, you're right on this.
No, wait,
look. Russia is rearming with more reinforcements. I think they have 150,000 troops that they're going to send in. They're waiting for winter to be over to really start fucking the battle. So I've heard I've heard various different political commentators say this. Like, it's in no way whatsoever over. I don't. Why do you think all of a sudden it's over? Yes, they performed.
I never said it was over. Wait.
Okay.
The original question.
They've underperformed.
Okay.
Your original question was, would Putin have invaded if he knew it was going to turn out like this? And I say, of course.
Okay. That to me is so. First of all, even if hypothetically, say winter ends and Russia manages to take over the country at the cost of basically, maybe another 100,000 fucking Russians' lives. Ukraine has been fucking destroyed. Everyone in the rest of the world, except for China and India, fucking hates Russia's guts. What do they really gain? What do they gain from that? That's worth the cost.
Putin stays in power and he keeps the port. He keeps the Crimea area.
Does he stay in power?
Plus, there's a bunch of crops that are grown in Ukraine too. So.
To me that is so completely not worth it, and I really don't.
You're
think
not Putin.
If Putin had the crystal ball here and he saw the future, he only invaded because he didn't expect there to be this massive backlash.
I mean, if that were true, he would have pulled out by now. It would have just been
he can't pull out. What do you mean? He can't pull out.
Well, no exit. I mean, there are some people that think he's gonna.
You just said it's an autocracy. Of course, he can pull out if he wants to.
Wait. So autocracies only work because the people under you fear you and they, have belief in you. If he invades Ukraine, gets his military shit canned, and then runs away with his tail between his legs, he's gonna get fucking deposed in a week.
You don't phrase it like that though.
Well, obviously, but
yeah, I mean, like you say like, look, we need to focus more on this other thing, and then it's like we have accomplished our mission accomplished. Hang up the banner. We did it. We got rid of the Nazis in Ukraine. We're going back. I don't think that. Listen. I wish that was a viable strategy. I don't think it is. And if you're really worried about too many of your guys fucking deciding you're fucking weak and trying to take over, just kill a good fucking healthy number of them as well. They were traitors. They betrayed us in Ukraine. They sabotaged our efforts. Kill them. And the rest are like, oh fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is overperformed, but I don't think. I mean, I've heard people say that Russia is going to still win, take over Ukraine, and actually invade other countries. As many as 3 countries.
Okay,
look, this is why I'm saying
even if they win, who are they going to invade after that?
There's like a list of countries. Look, I've heard different diplomats talking about this shit, man.
Okay,
I have no idea about that, but I'm pretty sure they're going to get Ukraine in the long run.
I don't know. This is wild to me. Even if they eventually get Ukraine, the cost is going to be so significant. I think it'll end up destroying.
Everyone was super optimistic about Putin even invading. Now you're super optimistic that the Ukrainians are going to push him back.
That's my entire point, and that's my problem with the bluffing strategy, is because there was obviously a massive misunderstanding between the West and Putin. Putin didn't think the West would react the way it's doing to the invasion of Ukraine. He really probably thought, first of all, A, that their military was far more competent than it was, and B, that they were just going to walk in like they did with Crimea or Georgia. They didn't expect this response.
Well, there's no way to know what's going on in Putin's mind, but I'm pretty sure he expected exactly what's going on right now.
Okay, I don't know. This seems like they're.
Well, I'm glad to be getting all of this down.
Then he and the Russian military is just so beyond incompetence. I don't even know how he struggles to breathe and eat at the same time.
We need to timestamp this. We do, because when Russia invades, like crosses over Ukraine's other border and into Finland or something, then this will be a more interesting conversation.
Yeah, we'll know in 5 years who the fuck was right about this.
There you go. So you think he's going to invade a NATO country?
I don't know about all that.
This is why NATO is gearing up with all these weapons and stuff. All of these countries that border Ukraine are ready for a Russian invasion.
Wait, okay. If they take Ukraine, I mean, their military, they're going to need years to rebuild their military. They're not going to just be able to turn around and invade some next country.
Man, I'm pretty sure countries play the long game usually.
That's what I'm saying.
Especially militarily.
But I'm just saying. You're saying like in 5 years, I don't think he's going to turn around and invade another country in 5
Oh,
years.
I was
even if he takes Ukraine.
I was just saying in 5 years you will see if he is able to successfully conquer Ukraine or not.
Okay.
It's Belarus and Poland that are the.
Well, it's not going to be Poland because Poland.
That are
I don't
on
think
the,
I don't think
the
Putin's
list.
going to invade any sort of. I don't think he's going to invade any NATO countries. I think that's probably far-fetched.
I think everyone hopes he's not going to invade any more NATO countries. I don't,
because Ukraine was not in. I mean, they were in talks with NATO, which I think is why he felt pressured to do it in the first place. He's like, if we're going to act on this, we got to act now. If our ambitions include Ukraine, we got to get it now before NATO forces are there, which I think is kind of what forced his hand to do this.
Well,
in the
there
first
weren't
place.
really any like recent talks. Like, it's not like, oh, we were talking about Ukraine joining NATO, in 2021 or 2022, and that's like, that was it. I don't really buy Putin saying that was the motivation. I think the motivation was he wanted Ukraine because of the demographics, because of the lithium, because of the natural resources, and COVID was over. And so now they finally could, invade.
If you think about it, like in terms of like buying some, you can say like Ukraine's not worth it. Ukraine's not worth it. Over what time period is Ukraine not worth it? Because if you have Ukraine and you have the resources of Ukraine, that's going to pay dividends every year. So yeah, you might be paying a big initial price for it, but if ultimately it's going to deliver you these resources in this capital year by year by year, like how long does it take before it's paid for itself? 20 years, 30 years? A country like Russia can afford to make that sort of long-term calculation.
Sure, but I'm not, when you talk about like despots like Putin, I'm not sure he's thinking about like, well, what's better for my country in 20 years as opposed to like him personally.
I think he wants a legacy like most leaders do.
Yeah, well, but if his legacy is he basically lost hundreds of thousands of Russian lives to barely scrape by a victory for a country which will hate Russia forever and will be a constant source of civil war and strife, I'm not sure that's.
Yeah, I mean, that might be how it ends up.
Right.
Or maybe that, like the thing about it is, like, we could never conquer a country like Iraq or whatever and make it like a U.S. outpost out there in the Middle East, because
that was never really the goal. But
well, arguable. But the idea.
Well, why do you say we can't? Because we won't, or because the people won't let us?
Well, I think more because it's not directly connected to us geographically. Because it's much harder to transport troops and forces.
Okay,
and tech
so the populace would force us out. But you're saying the American population would be fine with it.
Oh yeah, I don't think they would care. But
you really think so? You really think voters would be like, oh yeah, we've literally colonialized Iraq now.
It wouldn't be put to them like that. It'd be like, we liberated Iraq. So
yeah, but other people would put it as colonized.
Sure, but like they would just be called like libcuck, fucking sissy bitches, crybabies. And
Sitch, I got the numbers wrong too. It's 500,000 troops that Vladimir Putin has in his second wave. So
right, so I mean that's going to be pretty devastating.
Well, I mean, it could be bullshit.
Even
sure.
if it's 300,000, like whatever, even if it is 150,000, it's still pretty dramatic. I mean, like, pretty dramatic force. I don't know.
A bunch of people that don't want to be there, that have received little to no training, versus a bunch of people that are fighting for their freedom and their country and their lives.
I mean, passion will get you a long way, but like at the end of the day, war is kind of a numbers game a lot of the time.
Don't you remember Game of Thrones? 5 enemies versus 1.
I'm not saying it's impossible for a smaller force to overcome a larger one, but like
I hear everything that you're saying. I wonder where you're getting it from, because I mean, I want to be optimistic about it too, but
no, I'm not even listening. No, you're completely misunderstanding me. I'm not sitting here saying there's no way that Russia is going to conquer Ukraine. Well, my only point was that it sounds like you're saying, Adam, that this hasn't had some massive cost to Russia and the Russian military and the Russian people, and to me that's completely not true.
Well, wait a second. It's had a hell of a lot of cost to Ukraine because it's been decimating their cities and infrastructure.
Yes, but it's had a massive obviously, no one's denying that.
Look,
but
aside from the Russian troops that have died, what's the cost?
What do you What do you mean? Okay, first of all, you can't just say besides the hundreds of thousands of people that died from a population. That's a massive loss. to a country that's fucking hemorrhaging in their demographics already. They just killed off about like 100,000 young men.
Well, and they're going to do another 500,000 here in May.
Yeah, so what? They're going to lose another 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 men.
Putin doesn't care if
you their own population.
Putin doesn't care if
cut off all trade populations.
Putin doesn't care about any of this.
He has to care. What do you mean? Of course he cares about this.
He doesn't care. These aren't voters. He doesn't give a fuck.
If you successfully conquer the Ukraine, you're still going to have a net gain in population, no matter how many soldiers you sacrificed.
Yeah, because you're going to get all those
but not
people.
necessarily
Look at that.
Growth.
TJ's thinking like a real autocrat here.
No, he's not. Because you'll gain a number.
He's like, look, I just immigrated an entire country here, is what he's saying.
I'm happy that I've driven a wedge between the two of you. That's all I can say.
Thank you. No,
this wedge has existed for a long time, TJ.
I didn't know you had this wacky take on this.
I created it. I created it.
You didn't know that I had this wacky take?
Yeah, this is really wacky.
What's wacky about it? Did you know that 300 to 500,000 troops are going to be deployed in a second wave in May?
That's irrelevant to my point.
How? Well, okay.
You keep thinking I'm arguing that there's no way Russia could take Ukraine. I've never said that.
Okay,
I've never said that at any point in any conversation we've
ever had. So you agree that this is not over and that Russia could...
I never said it was over. The original point was, would Putin, knowing the future, still invade? And I said no. He expected little to no resistance from both Ukraine and the West.
Hold on. What if we're talking...
And you said, no, he would do it anyway. He doesn't care about any of the people that are dying. He doesn't care about making the Russian army look completely incompetent.
So take it further. Take it further. Let's say we're talking in May and Zelensky's dead and some, puppet dictator is placed in power by Putin. Then would Putin have done the same thing?
Yeah, but it's
now he's won everything.
Well, wait a minute. It's the Charlie Wilson's war problem. Wait, what happens then? Is Russia going to be able to survive? Is Russia just going to become a puppet state to China because they're the only people that'll do business with them?
Maybe that would work out great for China.
Is it worth it then?
This is a very strange argument because it kind of just involves going further and further into the hypothetical timeline, and then
I understand.
Would you have done that? Would you have done? Would have you done it then? What if we went?
That's why I was
years
only.
In the future, we're all slaves to a sentient race of seahorses.
Exactly.
Would you have still said it then?
Listen, when the aliens invade,
don't make fun of the seahorses.
What if Vladimir Putin is the only one that can save us from the aliens?
Sorry, seahorses. Sorry.
The sentient seahorses are coming.
That is what TJ said is true, and that's why I only limited it to what's happening now instead of the unforeseeable future where we keep going forever. Okay.
If that's the issue at hand, I think Putin in the long run probably will not regret the decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The seahorses will thank him, that's for sure.
That's true. The Justice 35 for $20 says, Adam, Ukraine is getting Leopard 2A7s, M1 Abrams, Meyer HIMARS, MLRS systems. Ukraine is on the path to victory, and that's why Ukraine measures victory in miles while Russia can't cross the street without losing 10,000 troops.
Look, we can have that debate over and over and over again. It's going to play out, and we're going to discover how it turns out.
I mean, that commentary was colored by a lot of like weird jingoistic shit, but whatever.
That's not jingoistic. Well, I mean, he's saying that they're going to have a lot of high tech military versus the Russians who have. I mean, the Russians could have high tech military too if they're getting it from Iran
or China.
Yeah. So we can debate, and I understand. Like you're saying, oh, you're crazy. Obviously, Ukraine is going to win. And my card's on the table. I want Ukraine to win. I think Ukraine is moving towards a democracy, and obviously, there's nothing like a war to unite people as against a shared, for a shared goal against a shared enemy. So I think, I'm rooting for Ukraine, but. At the same time, I know a lot of people said, "Oh, Russia won't even invade," and next thing you know, oh, they invaded.
Right, but there's a reason I've never ever talked about the battle on the ground in terms of gains or losses because I never trust any of that information, and I've never looked into any of it enough to make those.
Well, I've been looking into that information
whatsoever.
That's
and so but it's weird to me that that's what some people in the chat think I'm like. Saying, oh, there's no way that Ukraine can lose or something, which is like, no, it's just, is Russia doing? Is this what Russia expected? I don't know. To me, it seems completely unlikely that this would be the expectation from Russia in terms of the way this fight is going so far.
I mean, I feel like, maybe Russia I mean, I can't really know. Maybe they underestimated to some degree, but
Of course
I feel like most of this had to have been predictable because I mean, it's been kind of like standard issue how we've done things. Like we're not doing anything against Russia that's like particularly strange to our overarching strategy of dealing with these kind of like threats. Like we're doing a lot of the same stuff we've done to like Iran and other fucking enemy states that we don't have open war with. We do like economic warfare and we fund, groups that are fighting against them or give them weaponry.
I think we've had a different response every single time. Like Russia has took Crimea, took Georgia, I think. And we've had like a different response every single time.
And they just did it. Right. I mean, even in America, the American intelligence agencies and the people giving them weapons and money, they thought that this was going to be over in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so, and Russia was going to win.
This to be drawn out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is kind of like this tendency towards like overly optimistic ideas about how easy it is to conquer a country.
Yeah.
I think we saw this like once again, Afghanistan, Iraq.
Yep.
Whatever our ambitions were there, we can agree that like an overly rosy picture was painted about how just easily we would just slice through those countries like a knife through warm butter. And it just, it doesn't necessarily manifest that way.
We didn't do this because it would be easy, or we didn't. Now I can't think of the thing. Any super chats?
Yeah, Putin thought this was. I'm pretty sure that there was talks from Putin himself. They thought this was going to be over in a couple of weeks.
I remember.
At least they said they thought it was going to be over in a couple of weeks. So.
We didn't do this because it would be easy. We did this because we thought it would be easy. That's
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
If Don for $20 says attacking across the entire border from Belarus to Crimea with such few troops makes it obvious they were expecting to topple Ukraine quickly. The moment it became long-term war, it stopped being worth it, but Russia can't back out. I see. That's what I think is going on. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I don't really agree with that assessment, but I think we've already explored the reasons why.
We have, yes. Lucius Cornelius Solia for $20 says, TJ, do you acknowledge that by living in such a red district, it's more likely that extremists will live in that district, and therefore those comments you mentioned last time are underrepresentative of the average Republican?
Yeah, possibly. I don't exactly remember what exactly you're talking about.
You were on fire, TJ. Everyone got super pissed off because you were like, everyone in the South is racist, and we have a lot of people who listen who are in the South, and they're like, I'm not racist. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, I lived in the South, and there are people who. Well, this was like 20 years ago, but
there's like definitely way more open racism.
Well, there are people that are openly racist, but not every single person is openly racist. Yeah, they're just like people who are like, racist pieces of shit that feel they need to talk about it.
I just remember there being like a lot of times where people would be like, oh, well, you might not want to go into that area. I'm like, oh, why not? It's like, oh, well, there's a lot of Democrat voters over there. It gets dark over there a little earlier than it does other places, Like, okay, I gotcha. I see what's happening here. But whatever, I don't want to piss him off with the same take twice.
That's not where Scott Adams lives over there, right?
There you go.
What do you guys think of Scott Adams?
Did you cover Scott Adams? We never really talked about Scott Adams.
I did.
What do you mean? We had a whole conversation. Oh, you mean with TJ?
With TJ, yeah. We had a
whole conversation.
TJ, you're welcome to stay. You've been here for like almost 2 hours. You're welcome to duck out anytime. But
I probably should get going in a minute, but
we're probably going to keep streaming. And are we going to cover more Scott Adams, Sitch? I feel like we have like a video.
There was
or something.
A couple chunks of a debate. So we're going to watch the Jon Stewart talking, the Oklahoma State Senator guy that everyone's talking about. There was a couple chunks of the debate that I'm really important was in that we'll watch. So I really want to focus more on what Brianna Wu said. And there's some other clip that we could watch that's related to Scott Adams. So we'll talk about it then. Go ahead.
So did you have a take on Scott Adams, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think my take is all that different from what you're hearing from, I would assume, most people. Just like, the thing that is remarkable to me is just like thinking you're just going to say that and like your syndicated comic strip is just going to continue to run in like major newspapers and shit. Like,
look, you misunderstood him, TJ. He meant something completely different.
I really don't get the thing where he's like been on social media trying to do this campaign of like, no one even disagrees with me. No one even disagrees. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Yes, they do. A lot of people do. not everyone. There's people who do agree with you, but there's a lot of people who don't, and I don't understand this weird no one disagrees with me cope that's going on there.
Well, he's trying to do this, like, I don't know what you call it, argumentative jujitsu, where he's saying no one disagrees with the idea that, like, you know, you should live in an upper class nice area. That's what he's trying to say.
Well, poor people do because they don't have the money.
That's not what he said.
I know, but that's what he's trying to say when he says, that's what he means when he says that, which I agree
is that it? Because that's such a weird interpretation.
It is. I agree.
He didn't say like, you want to live in a nice area with good amenities. Like, yes, an uncontroversial statement. Stay away from blacks. Like, oh, controversial statement.
Sure. No, I agree. Mr. Anderson for $5 says, TJ, if you had the ultimate power, is there a group of people you would get rid of?
Oh, no.
Like I said earlier, I'm really not in favor of like bringing like death upon anybody.
That's good.
So, yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, like ideologically, there's some groups I want to stand by. Like saying I want to abolish religion is necessarily saying I want to abolish religious people, but I don't want to kill them. I just want to change their minds, or you know, maybe over time. So, I mean, like it's not really a same thing necessarily.
Well, but I think trans people think of their identity as being trans, and if you just wanted to, you know, change or talk them out of it, they would still say, you know, that's getting rid of trans people. That's still a trans genocide.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be like, that's probably one of the few the instances where I can actually see the comparison, I guess, because I see what you're trying to say with that. I would say that for me, like I said, when it comes down to like your personal level of like religiosity, I really don't care on that level. It's about groupthink to me. So in the same sense, I think like if a trans person feels like that's their identity, then I'm okay with that because you get to decide your identity inherently. Like we all get to, like, identity is a deeply personal thing. It's the most personal thing. So I mean, like, yeah, I think that should be something you have absolute determination over. Now, obviously, other people are going to have their own interpretations of your identity, but you know, their interpretation of your identity is not your identity. Your identity is your identity.
Pintonian for $10 says, TJ, would you say there's a philosophical through line through your positions, like libertarians maximum freedom, liberals default to competition, Marxists view things through struggle, etc.?
Yeah, I would say I'm the libertarian maximum freedom, but without the hypocrisy that is attached to the people who identify as libertarian in this country.
What does that mean?
I'll leave it up to interpretation.
Okay. Fair enough. Rusty Cheese Knife for $5 says, TJ, you were spot on with your take on critical drinkers grifting. I disagree with about 99% of what you say regularly, but you do have your moments.
Thanks.
Yeah, you did a video recently where you were calling out, I think, critical drinker and neurotic. I didn't watch the video, so what was your take?
Go watch them.
Well, no, I planned to watch it. I just didn't have.
There you go.
I didn't have a chance to watch it before the show, but
well, if you've got to go, it's fine. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I just know we were kind of like trying to wind down, but I guess
what's up to you?
Yeah, the gist of the take, I guess, is just that I feel like there's like a group of people that I feel like they have entered the space of media criticism from the dishonest perspective of they're not really there to criticize the media. They're there to push their own politics. And I feel like I see too much of that going on. And I don't think that this is not to say that criticism should be bereft of a political dimension. But when the politics overtake literally everything else, and what your content becomes is basically just like a nonstop screed against the concept of like wokeness or whatever, I think that that's like really tedious content that's being made not out of any sort of like genuine passion about media, but out of an attempt to grift an audience for whom that message strongly resonates for political and social reasons.
Well, I couldn't disagree more, but I think, you know, maybe we can do a part 2 or something and talk about that. Because
if that's like a profound disagreement, I think we probably should save it for another time.
No, yeah. And I am curious. I definitely wanted to watch your video as soon as I saw it. I just didn't have time before the show. And, you know, we did a debate, I think maybe a couple weeks ago now, with a couple people who kind of have that perspective. And I do think I watch Critical Drinkers videos and I like him a lot. I think he's a really smart guy and he knows about film.
Did you watch the?
I think the same of Nerdrotic. Just to finish up real quick. So
I'm sorry. Did you watch the criticism of a Critical Drinker that was done of his Glass Onion review?
I didn't know, but if you send me any link,
remember.
I'm
going to send you that link because I'd be interested to like at some point maybe in the future you and me could have a conversation about that.
Sure,
video.
yeah. Look, Sitch and I both have been on EFAP and we've argued with those guys about film criticism and stuff. I love talking about film and film criticism. So that's why I think when you say that Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker are not coming from like this honest perspective and they're just trying to grift an audience, I completely disagree. I think those guys are like media junkies. And I'll
just say before you go, because what you were saying is that they're inserting their politics into it, and from my understanding is that their major complaint is they feel like the left primarily is inserting politics in movies and in media in ways that didn't exist before, and that's what they're criticizing.
I feel like that's total bullshit. But I really don't want to get into it right now.
Yeah, let's do a part two.
I definitely want to do a follow up with you guys on this subject. But
let's do it.
I have to go now.
Let's do it in a few weeks.
All right.
Take care, man. Thanks for coming on. It's a lot of fun.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, stop being bad faith to our audience too. Jeez.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I want to apologize for all of my
we don't allow apologies on the show.
For all of my horrible strawmen and bad takes, I profoundly and sincerely apologize.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. It was my bad takes, my bad faith, my general badness.
You can.
Sorry about that.
You're just one good take away from turning your life around, TJ.
Exactly. So. I'm just waiting for it. I'm just always out there searching for that one good take that I'll eventually, hopefully, have. Maybe
someday. I hope you have it on our show.
That's the good take.
All right. Have it going, y'all.
Take care, man.
Take care. Later.